Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse, coming to you live from the middle of nowhere, Ohio. There's no place I'd rather be. So I hope you're doing well. Today's going to be a little bit different of a show format. This is mostly going to be a show where we're talking to each other. It's going to be a Q&A because we need just to engage with one another. I put a post out on Telegram yesterday or maybe 2 days ago, and people are really struggling. And I think that it's a good time for us just to have a discussion about where we're at in history, where we're going, how to make it through what's ahead of us. The entire show will be on the free public platforms. So if you're on YouTube or Facebook or Rumble, we're not going to be crossing over to Rise only for the Q&A. The intention is that this is almost like a public service show where we need each other. So there's not going to be a paywall involved. So if you have questions, if you're on Facebook or YouTube or Rumble, if you have questions, we're monitoring all the streams. Just write question in the headline of what you're asking about, and we'll make sure that those questions get in. And the show might go on for an hour, might go on for an hour and a half, might go on for 2 hours. I'm going to stay here and just talk through everything with y'all because these are some crazy times that we're living in. So now, for those of you that are on Rise TV, you already know it, but I just want to talk a little bit about Rise TV before we get started because Rise TV is what allows me to do this full time. As you can see, I try as best as I can to put everything out on the free platforms, but we have to have a little bit of an offering for people if they want to support us. We want to give you something in return. So let me actually just show you. I'm not sure if you've actually seen Rise TV. So this is Rise TV right here. And it is a streaming platform. I say similar to Netflix because everyone knows Netflix, but we're not Netflix at all because it's owned by patriots and we care about God and country and faith and things that will help humanity improve. But this is what Rise TV is a streaming platform. We've got tons of shows, a lot of content, great series. If you go, this is the all content tab. We've got hundreds and hundreds of videos up here. You could spend days watching Rise TV and never reach the end of it. And we cover topics that you're not going to find in other places. Things like human trafficking, what's really happening with the pandemic, but even things about spirituality, transhumanism. As you can see, there is just a massive amount of content. But we also have series and documentaries. Like this is one of my favorite series. This is the Old World Order, where the team has gone into the secret space program, hidden technologies, false flags. There's a long documentary, the false flags documentary, goes into Las Vegas and the other big false flags. So anyway, there is just an incredible amount of content over on Rise TV. So like I said, today's show is not going to be on Rise TV, only for the Q&A portion. But if you do want to support what we are doing, if you want to allow me to keep fighting in the way that I am as Man in America, the best way you can support is by joining Rise TV. It's $9.99 per month. If you want to try it out, there is a link for a free trial in the description below. You can sign up, you can poke around, watch any of the content that's on there. We drop documentaries and longer videos. But one of the most beautiful parts about it is the interaction. If you're only watching on YouTube, you always see okay, bye, we're heading over to Rise TV. We do the Q&As over there, and it's a smaller crowd, so your questions get answered. We talk back and forth. It's very intimate, and you get to know other people that are also on Rise TV and part of Rise TV. So it's a community because I think that for a lot of us, we feel kind of alone right now, and we've been ostracized and kicked out, and a lot of our family's not talking to us. And this is part of what we're going to talk about today. So just wanted to introduce that to you. The other thing is that, I've talked about gold, and I'm going to say something a little different today because, look, when I talk about noble gold and buying gold and silver, it's not because I'm trying to push a particular gold person for an agenda. I genuinely believe in buying gold and silver right now. It's what I personally do. If I have a little excess money, buy a couple ounces of silver, put it away. And look, if you have other ways of buying gold or silver, I highly recommend it. I've already vetted Noble Gold. I'm confident in them, which is why I recommend them. But I'm very cautious on anything I recommend to you. And I'm being serious when I tell you that probably 2, 3, 4 times every week, I get people reaching out to me saying, can you advertise our product? I am so selective on what I recommend because I don't want to just sell you some widget that's not going to help you. But with where we're headed, whether it's the, I think looming financial collapse, the food shortages, the lockdown 2.0 that they're already talking about, the best way to secure your wealth is physical gold and silver. And some people are like, oh, Bitcoin and crypto. For me, look, I don't trust anything that's a number on a computer screen, because they've already talked about cyber attacks and bringing down the power grid and everything. Look, if you're storing a lot of your wealth in cryptocurrency and that all just goes off and one day you don't have access to the internet anymore, how are you going to go trade crypto for rice locally? So that's not my thing. Look, maybe you know crypto and you know how to buy and sell it and you're excellent at it and you can make some money. Good for you. It's a good way to make money if you know what you're doing. It's a good way to lose money if you don't know what you're doing, which is why I don't touch it. But if you are interested in gold or silver, I do recommend it. And also something is that if you have money sitting in an IRA, which is very vulnerable right now, and I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but I do think the stock market's going to take a major, major hit, to say the least. Noble Gold specializes in allowing you to transfer your assets from an IRA into physical gold and silver that you own, while using a loophole that allows you to evade the penalties and taxes that usually happen when you move your IRA out of your traditional stores of wealth. So if you want to check out Noble Gold, go to www.goldwithseth, that's me.com. Or I've got a phone number here for you. You can also call 877-646-5347 to speak to a real human being in the beautiful country of America that will help answer any questions you have. Even if you have a question that might be kind of silly, give them a call. Ask them. It's 877-646-5347. They will help you out. So, all right. So, folks, today's show, as I mentioned, this is going to be a little bit special of a format. For one, I'll repeat it again. If you have any questions at all, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, Rise, etc., just write question in the headline, drop it in the comments, and I'll try to get to it, because I want this show to be a time where we can come together, we can talk about things. I put a post, as I mentioned, on Telegram, and I think it's gotten over 300 or 400 comments in the past day or so, which has been astounding. But at the same time, it saddens me, because I can see the state of people. And look, we've gone from rewind back to before the election, back before COVID hit, back to 2019, when life was relatively normal. We had COVID hit. We saw our entire country shut down overnight. And in some areas, it was sustained for almost 2 years. We saw mask mandates. We saw what happened November 3rd, 2020, which, since I'm on the public platforms, I can't go into detail, but you know what I'm talking about. Right? Then we had the rollout of the jabs and the passports for those. Then we had just all the insanity, all the, we had January 6th. We had this division, where the Patriots are being called domestic terrorists. And we keep going. And through all of this, for a lot of us, I know that myself and probably you as a listener, your family's ostracizing you, certain friends stop talking to you. I mean, I've had family members that just stopped talking to me. They didn't talk to me for 9 months, 10 months because of my political views. As you know, I put my views out there, so people, they see them and they push me away. They don't talk to me, or because of my views about the jab or my views on COVID. And I'm sure you're feeling a similar pressure. And then, you think that okay, wow, COVID's finally ending, and they recently, they've lifted the mandates for the masks on airplanes, which hopefully that sticks. And then we have the Russian war, we had the Ukraine war come in, and everything. The whole narrative has just shifted to that now, and it's not just something that's happening in some isolated part of the world; it's affecting us. And so we have this war that's unfolding, all amidst that. You have people like Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab out there pushing the Great Reset. We're going through this war, but now what are the ramifications from this? We're now seeing it's going to massively affect our food supply. And so now we're looking to the future and we're thinking, oh my goodness, there might be a massive food shortage in 6 to 12 months, which I believe that there will be. We're also seeing the US dollar as the a reserve currency of the world, as the petrodollar is quickly slipping. We're seeing inflation hitting almost 10%. And that's just how they're looking at inflation. They're not talking about the real cost of our goods. They're not talking about how chicken is up X amount, how eggs are up 50%, how gas is up. Now it's $4 a gallon, $5 a gallon across the country. So all of these things are hitting us, and it just feels like we're being tortured. And there was a post that Amazing Polly put out recently on Telegram, and she was comparing this to torture that we've been going through. And if you haven't found, or if you haven't watched Amazing Polly, go to Rumble, search for Amazing Polly. She's fantastic. I've been a longtime fan of hers, and she's put out some really good content. I've learned a lot from her. She does great investigative journalism and does amazing videos that explain what she's found. But she's referred to what's happening as torture. And one commonality in torture that she's talked about, and that also if you study whether it's the book The Rape of the Mind or how they basically torture people, is a big part of it is this push and this intensity, and then it lets off. And that's the key. Is that if they were just nonstop boot on your neck, not lifting up, it wouldn't work. So what they do is they give you these little breaks. They give you these little wins where it's like, oh, finally, and I'm sure you've seen that, right? Over the past couple of years, it's like, oh, the lockdown is finally ended. But then, oh my goodness, it's the next variant's coming. And then it's lockdowns again. And so, like, again, I don't want to be a doomsday type person, or I'm actually a pretty positive person if you ask those who know me, but I also want to be a realist, because even though it feels like a lot of this is letting up and there's the lockdowns and restrictions and masks have really eased, to me everything points to the fact that it's going to come back, and they're just waiting, and this is a cycle they want to keep us in until they've completely beaten our will out of us, and that's what they do. So we're going to talk about all that and more today, and I'm going to get to your questions, but there's two recent experiences that I want to share with you, because I feel like that God has given me this platform to be in front of you talking to you, and somehow you keep coming back to listen, and I really appreciate that. I really do. But there's two recent things that happened over this past couple of days I want to share with you. So one of them is I had a really long talk with my mother. I think it was actually yesterday, after I was talking to my wife, and we're talking about just the future and what the future holds. And so I'm in a situation where I live in more rural Ohio. I'm, an hour and 15 minutes outside of Columbus. And Columbus area is where I grew up. It's where my family is. It's where my mom, where she's at. And so I had a really serious talk with her, though, and it really helped me understand a lot about where we are at through talking with her, because she's a very smart woman. She's a patriot. She's just God-fearing, and she's just a lovely person that loves her country. But I was seeing where she's at mentally with all this. It was very helpful for me. And so in talking to her, because what the conversation was about was I was trying to say, Mom, look, I really want you to move closer to me. You could renovate our basement for you. You can build a little cabin on our property. I've been almost begging her and her fiance to come live with us or live on our property, because it's like, I really believe that what we're entering into, and if you've watched my recent content, you're up to this subject. If you haven't, I recommend you go watch, especially recently, the shows I did on food shortages and the collapse of the dollar. But I believe that we're entering into a period where we're approaching a Great Depression. But I actually think it's something much worse than a Great Depression, because a Great Depression was much more limited in its scope. And so I think that, and so I was explaining to her, I was like, Mom, imagine that if we're 1 to 2 years away from this event that will shock our nation, much like the Great Depression did, we should be acting now in a way that protects us for the future. So she lives in a beautiful neighborhood of Columbus. It's a very sought after neighborhood. The real estate prices keep going up. But I've been telling her, it's like, Mom, if there's food shortages, those people that are in, kind of downtown Columbus, they're not stocking up. And if the bread lines run out, they're going to be coming to the wealthier neighborhoods of Columbus to loot and pillage to get food. Like where you're at, it's not going to be a safe place in the future. And I've had this conversation with her before, but I was also explaining to her one thing that really hit me, and I could see how it affected her. And this is something I'm going to share with you, because I think that one of the comments I see from you is, I've been trying to talk to my family about prepping and being prepared. I've been trying to talk to them about even moving closer or moving in together and working together as a family. And a lot of your, in your comments, you're telling me that people are rejecting you, they're mocking you, they're not listening. But something I told her that really seemed to move her heart was, I said, Mom, we're doing this for you. This isn't because of a lifestyle that we like. This isn't because I want to live out in the country. I mean, I enjoy it, yes. But I was like, everything that we're doing right now, whether it's stocking up on canned food, learning how to can food, all the gardening, buying more chickens, learning how to raise chickens. I didn't know how to raise chickens a year ago. Thankfully, my wife grew up with chickens, but I had no idea how to do these things. 3 years ago, I was living in a high rise in New York City. I had no idea how to garden. I had no idea how to raise chickens or any other animals. I didn't even know how to cook. Ask my wife. I was a terrible cook. She says I could barely make bacon, which is true. But now I cook a lot of our meals because I've learned these things. But I had to make big changes in my life to accommodate this. And so, but as I was talking to her, I said, Mom, this isn't about lifestyle. Like, I'm doing what I'm doing because I care for you. And I want to look in 2 years or in 1 year, whatever it is, if society really goes south and the SHIT hits the fan, I want to have a home that has a roof over the head that we can heat with wood. I want to have a reserve of food that I can support you and other family that haven't prepared in the ways that perhaps they should have. Like, that's why we're doing this. Like, I'm doing this for you. And it really struck a chord with her. And again, look, she knows what's going on. She watches this show. She's probably one of the biggest fans. If you're over on Rise TV, she's there as Mom 1776. So she's always commenting, "Oh, that's my boy," But she knows what's really happening. And so she understands, but I can still see there's a disconnect. And I said, "Look, Mom, this is for you. This is why I'm doing this. It's not just, it's for my daughter. It's for my wife. It's for, maybe if my wife's family can come over from Australia, if they can escape the prison island one day and they can be here." Like, we're really trying to build a community for our family, because during the Great Depression, and not just the Great Depression, during different wars or other areas where humanity has gone through intense suffering, people got through it by banding together. Right? Even in the book, Rape of the Mind, where Juste Merleau, the author, who's a psychoanalyst, is studying torture and studying brainwashing, the number one thing that they found that made it difficult to brainwash people or to put them into a despondent state was when they had strong family ties. So I'm really doing everything I can to try to bring our family together, because that's what's going to allow us to get through this. And so that I told her this, and it really helped her. And the other thing I told her, which was also helpful, this might be recommended for you as well, because she was talking, she goes, "Well, Seth, the lifestyle that you enjoy is different from ours." And because her lifestyle, again, she lives in a very nice area. They can walk to the ice cream shop, they can walk to a coffee shop, they can go to the local farm market, but it's definitely a much more suburban area. And I said, "Mom, the life that you enjoy, that life will not exist in a couple of years." And that was a big one, actually, for her. And I think that really hit her. I said, "Look, I'm not trying to be doomsday. I'm not trying to be someone that is fear-mongering. But that life that you love right now, it's not going to be here." And this is something that I also want to talk to you about, because I think that for a lot of people, we're going through these stages of grief. But we have to get to the point where we accept. Actually, funny enough, I want to show you that. I want to pull that up for you. So I literally want to show you here, again, 7 stages of grief. Because right now, what we're going through as a nation, and not just as a nation, but as a humanity, but I'm going to talk to my fellow Americans as a nation right now. And this will also be, make sense to those of you around the world, but this is what we're going through. It's like, so, usually they talk about the stages of grief. Let's just say that you lose a loved one in a car accident, or something bad happens. Say the hurricane comes and you lose your home because of it. You go through these stages of grief. But what have we lost? We've lost, in a lot of ways, almost everything. We still have for a lot of us, we still have our health and our family around us. But what we're losing is our nation as we knew it. Because the evil that existed in this world, it hid for a very, very, very long time. It's now revealing itself. And with the whole idea of the Great Reset and everything they're pushing, this is what we're now realizing. Everything that you thought was sacred. Look at Disney. I grew up thinking Disney was just beautiful, company that cared about children. Like, everything that we held dear is being taken away from us. And I think especially as we get through the next couple of years, we have a lot of loss ahead of us. And a lot of the life that we used to love and enjoy, it's not going to be there anymore. Something else will emerge, which we can talk about, because I'm excited for what's going to come of that as we return back to what I believe is the way that humans are supposed to live as God planned for us, not the way that we've been shuffled into these big cities and pulled off of the lands and been fed with massive monocrop agriculture that's built upon Monsanto chemicals they're slowly killing us with and everything. So anyway, so I wanted just to talk about just these stages of grief. So ask yourself, which stage of this are you at? Maybe the first shock was November 3rd. Maybe that was the first shock for you. It's like, is this really happening? Or maybe it was when the COVID lockdown started and there's that shock. Is this really happening? And then you have this denial, like, no, it can't be. Like, it can't be. Our government's not bad. Our government's not trying to harm us. They're just trying to protect us. And then maybe it's anger. It's like, well, maybe they are trying to harm us. Maybe Biden shouldn't be where he's at right now. Maybe Fox called Arizona for a reason, right? And then there's this anger. And I see that with a lot of people. And I think sometimes it's a righteous indignation. It's an anger that's, I think, good sometimes to feel that anger. But then it's bargaining, like, okay, no, hold on. Like, okay, maybe if I wear my mask, I'll get back to here. That bargaining is a big part of this. It's like, okay, how can we bargain to get back to what we thought was normal? How can we bargain? It's like, no. Look, if we just do the lockdowns for the next month, we'll get things back. Well, then you're realizing the bargaining does not work. There's no intention for the elites, the social engineers. They have no intention of bargaining with us. And if there's a bargain, it's actually because they've got something else they're trying to swap out for, which is why, unfortunately, I don't really trust a lot of the wins that we see. I don't really trust them very much because they might say, well, okay, like we'll end the lockdowns, but they've also brought in new laws amidst that enable them to kick back lockdowns anytime they want to in the future. But then there's depression. And that's one of the words I'm seeing a lot in the comments is just being depressed. Like I had a woman that told me she was crying all day with where we're at. Then testing, right, which is kind of seeing where we are. Is this really real? And then acceptance. And acceptance is just realizing this is where we are in history. This is where we're going. We have to get through it. So that's actually a lot of what I feel like my job is lately. I didn't set out to do this. Like I wanted to make a video about the election before then Trump shared it and here we are. Is I feel like that one of my jobs is to help you get to that acceptance stage because, I'm seeing two different narratives play out here. I'm seeing that, if I'm watching a lot of, look, I follow a lot of the big social media channels that you're probably following. I listen to a lot of podcasters. Kate and I, very often we have someone playing on our speaker at home, whether we're cooking or cleaning, we're listening to, various shows just to understand what's happening. Everything from Tucker Carlson to Bards FM to Mike Adams to, a whole variety of different podcasts that we're listening to, even ones I don't necessarily agree with because I want to see what the overall narrative is. But I'm seeing that people are taking things two ways. And there's certain people that are they're focusing more and more, and the politicians as well, that they're focusing more and more on, hey, we're going to win. We're going to get that red wave, get our people back in the office. Trump is going to come back. And Durham is, Durham's council. He's getting ready to unleash, Durham. Elon Musk is going to buy Twitter and he's going to put Trump back on the Twitter. There's all these people that, and I'm not blaming them or judging them, I'm just commenting on this, that they're very focused on this particular narrative that, and in a lot of ways, it feels like it's the bread and circuses. Because when you look at the reality of the food shortages, which this is not stopping. And I'm going to be covering within the next week or so, I'm going to do another show on food shortages. And actually, just a quick side point, there's a company that we order a lot of our bulk food from called Azure Marketplace. Their headquarters burned down yesterday. It's not a coincidence. This place is one of the biggest suppliers of bulk food. A lot of preppers use this company for, if you're buying bulk wheat berries or corn or flour or powdered milk or whatever it is, their headquarters literally burned to the ground. Is that a coincidence? So this is the steamroller that we see coming. It's not slowing down. But this is something that also I struggle with is because a lot of people that are out there that have a large audience, even President Trump, but a lot of the other politicians, they're not even talking about this. They're not even telling you, hey, learn how to garden. Hey, if you haven't stocked up, go buy an extra month's worth of food if you can. They're just ignoring it, which makes me really concerned about their overall intentions. And so I want to bring up, as I mentioned, the comments. There's a few comments that were made, and I want to dig into the Q&A. But there's a few comments I'm going to bring up that were on Telegram. I've got them in my notes here. And so, and I'll tell you, I'll warn you ahead of time that you're going to see my eyes darting around a lot this show. Normally, I try really hard to keep focused on the camera, to keep looking at you and engaging you, but I've got a teleprompter, but it's not easy to read a lot of the information. So as I'm looking through comments and whatnot, you're going to see me darting around. I apologize in advance, but that enables me to interact with you. So there's a couple of comments. So these are people that commented to my question on Telegram about how you're doing. And I wanted to read through these comments because I think that they represent how a lot of us are feeling right now. So Michelle C says, I'm feeling anxious. I'm stocking up on necessities, buying silver and Bitcoin, reading and watching podcasts. I'm sad because the future of our country is so uncertain. I'm disappointed in Trump for some of his endorsements and him pushing the vax and not communicating with his base on issues that matter to us. I'm concerned the COVID agenda isn't over yet. There's just so much. I'm also tired of my family and friends thinking I'm nuts when I try to warn them about stuff like the need to stock up on things, etc. That probably sounds like you. Linda A., who commented, I worry about my kids the most and wish I could turn off my brain and just enjoy some peace and quiet. Before this shit show started, I never realized just how much I truly love our country and freedom. And maybe that's one of the silver linings in all this, is that I think for a lot of us, I can certainly say from my own life, my own perspective, I have learned to value and cherish our freedom and our Constitution more than I ever thought possible. That's one thing I've learned from this. Here's Copper Goddess, who says, I had a really rough day of nonstop crying and feeling hopeless, but I'm back to my normal, cautiously optimistic self. I have a small homestead that we're putting all our energy into, and that's what makes me happy. Here, Brady says, I have PTSD. Everything that is going on is like someone pouring salt on the wounds of the past. I survived every abuse you can imagine. However, I believe God was preparing me to survive this current state of affairs. My relationship with our Lord is simply growing stronger, and I'm still standing. Here's from Jade M., who says, my faith in God is stronger than ever. The evil I never saw before is now clearer than ever. On the other hand, I'm an RN in New York, lost my job, had to take a huge pay cut just to find work without taking the poison. I see you posting all you're doing to help survive, farming, etc. I wish I had help and resources to do the same. The Bible says to fear not. We will be given all we need, and I believe that to be true. So to sum it up, I'm faithful and exhausted, but we will win, and of that I have no doubts. God bless you, Seth, for all that you do. You're such a light in dark times. So, these were just some incredible comments for people that I think they're really telling. They're really, really telling for where we're at. So some of you are asking some incredible questions. As I told you before, if you have a question, doesn't matter what platform you're on, just ask it and I'm going to get to it. And I'm going to stay here as long as I need to get through hopefully all the questions. Because I think that this needs to be a time for us to come together. And also, even if you don't have a question, but just say comment, how are you making it through this? Right? It's like one of the comments on Telegram. She says that she's focusing on her homestead and that's really helping her get through. I can tell you that's the same for me, is that when I pull myself away from the computer or social media and I go outside, like this morning I was out with my wife and my daughter and we're planting, Kate was planting some seeds and I was helping get some buckets of dirt we're planting some horseradish and some ginger and turmeric, and being out in the fresh air, hearing the birds singing, that's, to me, it's one of those beautiful experiences. So that's one thing I really, really recommend. In addition to trying to bring your family closer, is just getting outside. Even if you have a small balcony. Look, I had a balcony in New York City. I still grew little plants on it. They weren't gardening plants; they're just decorative plants. But even if you have a small balcony and you can grow and get your hands in some soil and get some fresh air, it's so, so healthy. So I'm going to go ahead and start just jumping into the questions. And again, thank you all for participating with this, and I'll get to as many as I can. So, all right, so from YouTube, we've got Real Eyes, Realize, Real Lies, a little bit of a tongue twister there, who says, when will all this end? And I want to come back because somebody else also asked that. So Sheila Eddy, also from YouTube, says, Seth, when do you think the food shortages in America would begin? So I'm going to take these two questions together because they're both part of the same puzzle. So a lot of people are just, in general, they're asking about timing, right? When are things going to play out? Now, one thing I want to just give a quick disclaimer, all I have are estimates and gut feelings and what I've read from other experts. So look, I'm not a psychic. I don't have a crystal ball. If I say something could be 1 year, it could be 3 years. So I'll preface the statement with that. But when will it end? When will there be food shortages, et cetera? So my understanding of where I'm at is I think that up into the fall, look, so America had a really good crop season last year. We had what they call a bumper crop. This year, not so much. And actually, the other story I'll tell you shortly, because I told you at the beginning I had two stories, and I'll tell you the other one is about planting. But this year, not so much, because we have the increase in fertilizer. We're also, I see in the news that there's blockaging of shipping fertilizer. So there's fertilizer that's not even making it to areas because of some things happening with the railways, which is insane. But what we're seeing right now is that the planting season right now is really going to be affected. So the story I'll tell you quickly. So over the weekend, I went and drove about 2 hours away deep into Amish country, Ohio, to buy a wood stove because I'm really concerned. Look, I'm on natural gas where I'm at. And if the grid goes down or if there's issues or if gas prices keep spiking, I'm not going to be able to afford to heat my house. But if we lose electricity, look, if you use electricity, you can't heat your house anymore because you require, unless you have a generator, which is usually running on natural gas, but that's going to get real expensive really quick. But it requires electricity to run your furnace. So if you don't have any electricity, yeah, you can light your stove in your kitchen if you have gas, but you can't use your furnace to circulate hot air through your home. So we've been waiting and waiting. I finally found, I'm getting a Blaze King. I got it already. It's a Blaze King wood burning stove to install. But I drove deep into Amish country, and I was talking to the guy that ran this store. He's just a farmer with a big pole barn warehouse with some stoves in it, and I bought one of his floor models because the stoves are on back order. And this is the other thing too. And as I was talking to him, he said, "Look," he goes, "Seth, I have never seen what we're seeing right now." He goes, this is an older guy, maybe he's in his 50s or 60s. He goes, "I've never experienced what I'm seeing right now." And so for those of you that are saying, well, are there really food shortages? Is all this? Here's from a guy that is living this. He's living out in the country. He goes, "I've never seen this." He goes, "We have stoves that normally are on a 1 week back order, or you have to call in to get the part in. It takes a week or that's the next day. The stove I was looking for is on a 16-week back order. These are made in America. 16-week back order because of supply chain." He's saying that he's never seen in his entire career people this frantic about buying stoves to heat their homes. People know what's happening. He goes, "Look," he's like, "I'm talking to the farmers." And he was saying, "Look, so farmers, if they're farming an acre of corn, for instance, they know that an acre of corn takes," I forget the exact numbers, maybe it's around 200 pounds of nitrogen, 200 pounds of something else, maybe 100 pounds of potash. And what he's telling me is that these farmers, because the prices of fertilizer have gone up so much, some of them have gone up 400%, the farmers can no longer afford to grow a crop. Because let's just say that this particular field, say it would normally in the past would have cost $300 to farm. It's now costing $1,000 to farm, but they can only get $1,100 for all the corn off of that field. So, because you look at and I've covered this in the food shortages, you look at the cost of diesel fuel going up, the cost of natural gas going up because of, guess where most of the world's natural gas comes from? Well, it's Russia and Ukraine, where there's now being sanctioned. Well, thanks, Biden, right? You talk about cutting off your nose to spite your face. We're shooting ourselves in the foot with these sanctions. So anyway, he's just saying, look, Isaac, I don't know what's going to happen. He's like, we're entering into a very, very difficult time period. And this is the truth. So back to the questions about timing. So I believe that what we're going to be able to is that over the course up until the fall, we're still going to be able to prep and buy food. Like if you go to Costco, I did a big Costco trip over the weekend. I bought 100 cans of beans and various things just to keep buying. So we can still purchase these things right now. So there's one thing that can be aware of with timing though, is that so right up until now, not a lot of people are talking about this. In early March, Tucker Carlson did a 15-minute show where he interviewed a farmer talking about food shortages. Other than that, you're not seeing a lot of mainstream coverage of this. But what's going to happen, though, is that once this really kicks and you've got CNN talking about food shortages, you've got everything else, that in and of itself is going to kick off a food shortage. Because a lot of people aren't paying attention. They're not watching the Man in America show. They're watching Rachel Maddow or Anderson Cooper or even Sean Hannity, where they're not hearing about these things. So what happens when the entire nation hears about this and really knows it? You better believe you're going to have, think about the beginning of pandemic. You're going to have lines wrapping around Costco. You're not going to be able to buy food. And that's going to be stage one of food shortages. It's going to be a food shortage that is actually inflicted by the people themselves, not by the actual food shortages. But then what you're going to have is, I believe that as you get through the fall season into the winter, that's when you're going to start realizing that the crop that should have been planted this year, right now it's growing, there's going to be severe shortages of that crop. The animals right now, we also have the bird flu. They're already calling chickens. Egg prices are up 50%. Germany is telling people, the Farming Association in Germany are telling people, we're not going to be able to give you eggs in a couple of months. So you're going to see increased prices in eggs and chicken very quickly. And again, we talk about food shortages. Even if there's enough food, what happens when the grocery bill goes up 100% or 200%, which is going to happen because that corn, which is now cost X amount more, it's now 400% more expensive. So corn used to be, a couple of years ago, corn was trading at $3 a bushel. It's now trading over $8 a bushel. So for a farmer that's raising, cattle for beef, and corn is one of the main things he's feeding his cattle, well, his feed just got 200-300% more expensive. That's certainly going to affect the beef costs. So what you're going to see is that a food shortage caused by people not being able to afford food, which is going to cause people going to the government handouts, bread lines, et cetera. So this is what I see playing out now as we get into over the winter into the next spring. That's where I think that we're going to see the real food shortages, where people are just not going to be able to find food. You're going to see, I think even later into the year, you're going to see grocery stores that have empty shelves. We're already seeing it now, but like in a bigger way. You're going to see grocery stores with empty shelves. You're going to see people, one thing you're going to see come out is rationing, right? So you're going to go to Costco and they're going to say, you can only buy 10 cans of beans right now. That's it. So that's that's going to be one of the earlier stages they're going to implement, is they're going to implement rationing. I'm already seeing it. I was at Costco. They said limit of 4 per pack of butter. So that is already going to start starting. So the window, so folks, if you can, look, I'm telling you, the window that you have to buy food, set food aside, it is quickly closing. But also the window you have to garden is also closing, because if you can't get your plants seeded and sprouted and everything, you're going to lose that window as well. But so that's just looking at the timeline of food shortages. Now looking at what Realize said, when will this all end? I think you're going to have food shortages. I think that within the next, say, 12 to 24 months, that it's very likely we're going to see a collapse of our financial system. You're going to see the hyperinflation. If you look at the graphs of the inflation, it goes like this, and then it goes vertical. And a lot of experts say, how does it happen? How does the economy collapse? They say it's very slow and then all at once. So I think that within the next 12 to 24 months, we'll see a collapse of the economy as we know it. You're going to see a collapse of the U.S. dollar, but it's not just going to be America. You have to realize the American dollar is the world reserve currency, meaning that a lot of countries back their own currency to the U.S. dollar. So they hold large reserves of the U.S. dollar to back their currency. So like when they had hyperinflation in Venezuela, it only affected Venezuela and probably a few neighboring countries. It was very, very localized. So if the dollar experiences hyperinflation, the dollar collapses, it's going to be global, folks. And this is what's coming. So again, I don't want to be a fear monger, but I want to say, just please take this seriously. Buy gold, silver if you can. Get out of the big cities if you can. And even if you're trying to prep, I know it can feel overwhelming. And for some of us, even like I'm very overwhelmed by prepping. My wife is like extremely overwhelmed by prepping. Trust me. She's like, I'll look at her some days and she's just like, let this look on her face like, Kate, what's wrong? And she's like, how are we going to do all this? And it's a very real thing. So just one bit of advice is just do it step by step. Just do one small thing at a time. That's the key. I know you feel this pressure. Just do what you can in small little bits. And then you look back a month later and be like, oh my gosh, I've set aside a month and a half worth of food just by buying a little bit extra. The other thing is that if you can, try to buy bulk. If you have a Costco or a Sam's Club, while I hate supporting these big organizations, if you can go there and you can get a membership, it's $60 a year, $70 a year, start buying bulk, you can save that way. Another thing too is change how you're cooking. Start, instead of buying prepackaged food with labels, buy 25 pounds of red lentils. Learn how to cook red lentils. There's cheaper ways to eat. Look at third world countries. They're surviving off of rice and beans and dry goods that are very inexpensive. So anyway, so in terms of timeline, I think that we're looking at within the next 12 months, we're going to see drastic changes to our food supply. within 12 to 24 months, we're going to see very big changes in our dollar, our currency, our global financial systems. I think that those two things right there, in addition to potential lockdowns again, they will kick off a what you might call a collapse of a lot of these structures that keep our civilization held together around the world. And so I think, say, 3-4 years from now, we're going to be living in a global societal collapse where I don't think everyone's just going to go die. I think that most of us will actually end up making it through, but we will see a lot of death, a lot of difficulty. We're going to see a lot of changes. So it might be 10 years before our world restabilizes with a new system that is free of this fiat currency and the cabal. Because I believe in that process, that's during the time where we're going to see a lot of the evil really rooted out in our world, is amidst that process. I think that it's kind of like the Noah's Ark. We have a flood coming, we're building our arks, and we're going to make it through. So, all right. Sorry, long answer for that question, but okay. So, Supu from Rise, who says, "Hi all, I read a headline about train loads of fertilizer being prevented from moving. Is that here in the U.S.?" Yes, that is here in the U.S. This is something that Mike Adams talked about a week ago on one of his shows. He had some intel, and people sometimes have intel on where it comes from, if it comes true. But I first heard about this about a week ago through him talking about it in his show. And yeah, this is true. So they are purposefully, some of the unions have, as far as I understand, the unions, the train unions and the different companies that are moving things through railway have gotten direct orders from the Biden admin to halt certain shipments. So folks, like it's, and maybe I might cover this in my show tomorrow, just what's happening with the food, but the government, their goal is to starve us, just to put it blankly, right? Not all the government is bad, but the people that are in control, their goal is to bring down America, and one of the ways is through a food crisis, and it is engineered. And so whether it's the bird flu and the PCR testing and the forcing the calling of the whole livestock, to not allowing train shipments, to also knowingly putting tariffs on Russia and Ukraine. They know it's going to happen. They know that those tariffs are going to affect our food systems. They're doing it anyway. So anyway, yes, I did hear about that. Okay. Debbie Witt from YouTube says, "You can sell ammo for food, ? So yes, in the future, basically, I really believe that there's going to be a phase before a new currency is really established where we're going to be in a bartering system. Now, you might be able to still use gold and silver for that, which is why I recommend that. Crypto is not going to work. Cash dollar is not going to work. It's going to be bartering. It's going to be either gold and silver and precious metals, even copper, lead, various metals like that will actually have value you can use for bartering, but a lot of it's going to be a bartering of material goods, which is why, say you buy 1,000 rounds of 9mm ammo right now, and say today you're paying 50 cents a round. In the future, those rounds might be worth the equivalent of $5 per round, right? Because trust me, ammo, it will become a currency in and of itself. Ammo will become a currency in the future because people have to protect their land. You're not going to have the same police structure we're used to right now that is just patrolling. You call 911, like, oh, there's a burglar here. It's like, that's not going to be here, folks. So you're going to see a lot of people that are stocking up on ammunition. But what's also going to mean, though, is that you can barter with that. Even right now, like I've heard stories of people that they know their local farmers. Actually, I was talking to a friend of mine locally recently, and he was saying that he was using silver to pay for someone to do some work on his home. He's already bartering silver for work, but also someone else was telling me that they're using ammunition. They paid ammunition to pay a friend. They used ammo to pay a friend of theirs to do some favors for them. So you're already seeing that, and yes, we are going to see it where people are going to be bartering. You say, "Look, I'll trade you a pound of rice for 8 ounces of butter. I'll trade you a dozen chicken eggs for a sweater." That's going to emerge. So here we go from Rumble, from Harley Riding Girl, like your name. I'm a motorcycle guy myself. Not a Harley guy, but I love motorcycles. Who says, "I'm in high gear planting a garden for the first time. Just got chickens and started canning. Busy hands and bodies help you to be too tired to worry." It's such a good point. First off, kudos to you that you're doing your garden for the first time. My first garden was actually only last year. Kate and I were renting a house in a different area of Columbus, and we said, okay, let's do a garden. So we did some raised bed gardens. I learned so much about it. So kudos for you for planting your first garden. I wish you the best of success. Also great on just getting the chickens. there's a little bit of a learning curve, but actually chickens are really, really easy to keep. They're very reliable with eggs. Good for you. And you started canning. Actually, we just got last week or 2 weeks ago, I got a pressure canner from All American Pressure Canner. So we're going to start canning ourselves, and that's going to be something we're going to be doing as a family to stock up. So, and you're so right, actually. And like I talked to Kay about this quite a lot, is that usually when you're in a state of being worried, it's when you're sitting still. When you're out there doing and you're canning or you're planting, you're not worried about this stuff. You're just doing it. And you're touching your soil, and good for you. Such a good point. Supu, can you buy ammo if you don't have a gun permit? Yes. Well, depends on which state and city you're in. So I'm in Ohio, and in Ohio, and I think most states are like this. Now, in New York City, no, but most states are like this, that you can just go purchase ammo, and there's no gun license needed or anything like that. So even if you don't have a gun, it's not a bad thing to purchase. You can also buy it online. There's a handful of websites that if you search for bulk ammo, that can find it. It's a little more affordable. But yes, you can definitely purchase ammo if you don't have a gun permit. So Gail Broussard from Facebook, she says, doing this alone, a widow, it's hard. Buying extra food, water, solar generator, my late husband, prepping, gardening, canning. I hate doing this alone. No close friends, praying for God's wisdom and what to do to prepare. So Gail, I commend you. It makes me feel like I should, reflect and count my blessings more often than I do to have a family that's here with me with this. And I commend you for doing this alone. And I'm glad that your faith seems like it's in the right place, because maybe, the preparing you're doing brings a family into your life again. Maybe it's your neighbors, maybe it's other people around you, that they realize, wow, this lovely woman has been preparing. She knows how to prepare for this, and you have done that. So hopefully, though we have some tough times ahead, I think that God will hopefully take care of you and may bring people back into your life that can help you, because I know that it's difficult to do these things alone. So yeah, thank you for that comment though. Mindy from Rise, who says, anybody using the Gamma Seal lids on 5-gallon buckets? They seem too expensive these days. So I do a lot of 5-gallon bucket food prep stuff, mostly rice and flour and dried things, dried lentils, beans with diatomaceous earth. I'm not sure though. I'm not familiar with the Gamma Seal lids. I get my buckets at Home Depot or Tractor Supply, and they have like the food grade lids with a seal. I actually usually have to use like a sledgehammer to close them because they're really hard to close. Or I use like a kettlebell. I use in my gym to close them. But I'm not familiar with the Gamma Seal lids. But yeah, everything is getting more expensive. Even ball jars. That's like my wife's hobby is searching for ball jars, it seems. So she's literally like, Seth, I found they've got 30 packs of ball jars in Lancaster. Can you go get those? Like, okay. And I go get them. So ball jars, which are such an essential part of canning, are also something. So if you can stock up on those, it's a good thing as well. So BC Dean from YouTube says, how do you maintain a relationship with your spouse when you're under all this knowledge and stress and are also parents? Yeah, that's a good point. I feel very blessed because, Kate is very, she's on the same page as me. I mean, it causes stress for both of us because we have to live in this headspace. And sometimes I look back at how life used to be, I'm like, gosh, if I could just go back to how things used to be. But I realize that we can't, and we can only go forward. What's helped us the most is just cooperating and communicating. And we talk about every day, we're talking about what can we do? What can we do to push us forward? What's next? And we're just coordinating and cooperating. And I think that it's similar to the comment from Harley Riding Girl, who said that, busy hands helps, you don't have time to worry. That's a big thing. Even with my daughter, who's, she's 18 months now, I think. She's or 19 months or 20 months. I forget. She's around that age. She's a little firecracker, but I'm concerned about her future. But I worry less about her future when I'm putting my time into the things I need to do to prepare for her future. And so, I hope that you can find out the way to balance those relationships. And for people that, and I don't have a lot of good advice for this one. This is a tough one. Maybe what I shared with you earlier, for folks that have a spouse that doesn't see things this way, and that, a lot of people there say, I get messages saying, Seth, like, I'm all on board. My husband does not want to prep. He thinks it's kind of a conspiracy theory. That's a tough one. I think that if you're in a relationship where your spouse is opposed to this or doesn't want to prepare, that's a difficult one. I think that the best you can do is just ask for God's help and just pray. Okay, so here's a rumble from another word what, who says, will be used as fuel, corn cobs, trees that need to be dry or wet burn. So I think that we're going to have to see in the future, a lot of things will need to be used as fuel. The one thing is, especially for heating, and that's why for me, I'm moving towards a setup, and I have to do some construction in my house to accommodate this, but a wood burning stove, because I've got trees on my property I can cut down, which is also it's important to have a good chainsaw, a good axe, even a hand saw if you can't get gasoline to be able to process firewood. So I'm depending on that. But yeah, you're right though. It might need to be that where people are using basic things for fuel. I know that certain countries or poor areas they burn trash to stay warm. So I certainly think that those things will be used in the future. Okay, so from Rise TV, this is from Green Eye, who says, should we consider getting a satellite phone or possibly a CB radio for when things get bad, or will those be worthless? Yeah, so I think that is a good idea. I haven't got a sat phone yet. I've been kind of looking into it a little bit. The one thing is that if you can get a basic ham radio, so actually let me pull one up for you, because you can get a basic ham radio, these Baofeng radios. Let me pull this up and show this to you. So this is, again, this is $25. It's the Baofeng UV5R. Now, I'm not recommending you get it from Amazon. This is what comes up in the search to show it to you quickly. But this is a basic radio that's very effective. Get a couple of these, learn how to use them. So this is what I would definitely recommend. Just as your basic thing is getting one of these ham radios. Get at least a pair of them. These also be good for neighbors and neighborhoods. That way, say you got 8 of these, you can pass out to your neighbors for communication, because it's your small community that's become most important. You're not going to need to be as concerned about what's happening 100 miles away or 1,000 miles away. The most important communication is going to happen right in your area. So that's another important thing I really want to highlight for all of you is make an effort to get to know your community, especially those that are close to you. So this past Easter, we only moved this past fall and haven't met a lot of our neighbors, but we made a point to go into an Easter party also because June got to pick up eggs and put them in the basket, which was fun to watch. But we were able to really connect with a lot of our neighbors. And like I said, we live in a more rural area. They're all very conservative, which is fantastic. They have similar values, but a couple of them are doctors, which is great because if you know a doctor that's close to you, you may not be able to call 911 or just go to the hospital to whether you have a wound or you cut yourself or you fall ill and don't know how to treat that. But that's an important point is really get to know your neighbors and try to get to know your neighbors that are within a 2-mile radius of you. And talk to them about this. Maybe if they think you're a little kooky, one thing is just be very careful. Don't go around telling everybody, hey, I've got like 6 months worth of food stored up. That's something you don't want to broadcast that information. Somehow I'm in a profession where I do. So I'm glad I don't know where I live because but it is good to get to know your neighbors though, and start to build this network and encourage them. Encourage your neighbors to plant gardens, encourage them to prepare, and back to communication. Because that way, if things do get hairy, make sure you got lots of backup batteries. Maybe you get 6 of these radios and you go pass them out to the households that are close to you and say, hey, look, if you notice anything suspicious, or because there might be a time when there's more rampant crime or, gangs that are kind of going house to house looking for food. You never know. So build that small community. But those, like I said, that Baofeng radio, I'll put it back up for you. It's the Baofeng. It's called the UV-5R. $25. I think you get a pair of them for $40. So that's what I would recommend for that. Good question though. Okay, back to my questions. Okay, Chicken Coop Lady. My favorite people, who says, I do believe they're trying to starve us, but it could be much more than that. But could it be much more than that? I believe they have been working this strategy for a while to bankrupt all of us involved in the food supply chain. I agree. I think it's not just the starvation, not just food shortages. I think that the entire plan is way more intricate, whether it's, chemtrails and poisoning us through the air, or calling the chickens. And again, like you talked about, I know that you're on a big farm and then going after farmers and making it very hard for people to produce and become self-sufficient. So yeah, I think that it has to do with the central bank digital currency. They want the financial system collapse. Like their end goal is a global technocracy. Their end goal is a global social credit score monitoring, where for you to get your food, you have to line up, you have to show you've taken your 37th booster or your monthly booster, and you have to line up to get your food, which is probably going to be something grown in a lab. It's not going to be real meat. They're going to be using their central bank digital currency or the U.S. central currency. It'll all be digital currency based, social credit score. That's their goal. I believe they will not get there. Like I believe my entirety of my being, they will not get to that goal. I believe that there's a certain point where God steps in and we won't get there. But yeah, you're right. There's a much bigger plot to do this to all of us, unfortunately. Okay. Sue me self. What about those who can't afford to stock up? It's a question from YouTube. And that is a fantastic question. Is that for those that can't afford to stock up? So one is that it's a lot less expensive than you would think. I was at Costco the other day and I was getting rice and beans and various things. And we're looking at, I try to buy organic. The same big pharma that's trying to poison us. It's big farming, Monsanto. I try to avoid GMO food. I try to avoid non-organic food if I can. It's a little more expensive, but for me, I think a lot of the sickness we're seeing in our society, cancers especially, are coming from a lot of what they're putting into these foods and the pesticides and such. But I think at Costco you could buy maybe like a 30-pound bag of rice for $12 or $15. So like you could get, and I was looking at organic beans, you could get a 12-pack of organic beans for $9 or $8. So if you're buying certain things, it's actually really, really affordable. So rice as a basic staple, even flour, there's ways so Kate bakes bread every week, and we have these beautiful sourdough loaves that cost almost nothing to bake. So if you want to stock up, I think a lot of it is looking at and say you're limited on money. How are you currently spending your money? What are you currently buying? And so if you're shifting more towards buying bulk, there's ways that you can survive and subsist off of much less expensive grocery bill. So that's one thing, is to look at how you can be buying more bulk and eating in that way. But let's just say that you don't have an extra dollar to spend. Well, so obviously you're on the internet, right? So you're watching me here, which means that you can learn skills and that you can try to find ways to connect with people. And so that's the one thing I will always tell people as a number one. If you can't do anything else, teach yourself skills. Think about a future society where a lot of the skills that we can go to the local store and buy something or have something fixed or go buy a new pair of clothes or go buy a new pair of shoes. If those systems are no longer in place, there's a whole new parallel economy and parallel society that will emerge from this. So even if you can't afford to stock up, there's two things. One is learn valuable skills. You can go take free classes at a local community college, go to a local farm and volunteer once a week to learn how to raise animals, learn how to deliver a calf, learn how to butcher a chicken. You go on eBay, buy an old sewing machine on eBay, learn how to mend clothes, learn how to make clothes. Because if things get really difficult, you might know somebody that you say, look, I can come stay with you. I don't have a lot of food, but I know how to sew your clothes. I know how to farm. I know how to do, plant a garden. If you come with those skills will become commodities. And so think about skills that you can get, because skills are free. Again, most of the time that you can get skills for free. You can read books, listen to podcasts, watch YouTube tutorials. Even if you're working a lot, throw a little headphone in and listen while you're working. Because if you can really learn those skills, they'll be very useful in the future, and that might be what can be your saving grace. The other thing is try to build community, right? Because look, you might be living in an apartment in a city or someplace you wouldn't want to be. Go to local Patriot meetups. Try to find some. Like I joined recently on Facebook a Ohio homesteaders group with over 10,000 members. There's something called MAFA, Make America Free Again. They do Patriot meetups all over the country. So go to these meetups, meet the people that are local to you, and talk to some. Maybe someone has a big farm, and say, hey, can I come volunteer on your farm for a couple days every month? Build that relationship, and I guarantee you, if things get bad enough with that same person you've been helping out for free and learning, if you come to that person and say, hey, can I come stay with you? I'll do this work full time for you. Give me a roof over your head. I'll sleep in the barn if I have to, right? There are always going to be ways that we can survive through this. All right. Fernley, nice to see you, buddy. This is my good friend Fernley over from Rise, who says, feeling drained of battle fatigue. I planted a big vegetable garden, which has been therapeutic and productive. I've also begun deep dives on all the Georgia politicians to prepare for the 2022 elections. So yeah, I know you're down there in Georgia, and yeah, feeling drained because of battle fatigue. I certainly can attest, man. Actually, it's funny because I was talking to Kay about this the other day. It's like we both just feel more tired lately, and obviously need to be doing exercise and get out more and whatnot. But I think that there is I think there's something called adrenal fatigue, where you can be just tired from being stressed. And when we're watching these podcasts and we're paying attention to what's happening, it's tough. But I'm glad to hear though that you planted a garden. And yeah, you're right. It's so therapeutic. It's therapeutic and productive for you to get out there and work the soil. So a glass of water, folks. It's been an hour, and look, I'm just going to keep going. We're not stopping, folks. So reminder for those of you that are just joining, it's been an hour in. We're just doing a Q&A. And our Q&A is, how are you doing? How are we going to get through this? You have any questions about prepping or politics or the Great Reset or China, whatever. This is not going to be a Rise only. We're doing this Q&A for the entire show on YouTube and Rumble and Facebook. So if you have any questions at all, just put them in the comments, write question there, and we'll pull it in and we're going to get into it. So right now, let me take a quick look here. I've got pages of questions to get through. So we're just going to keep going here. I'm loving it. And I really appreciate you all being here and opening up. So FMJ 556mm, there you go. That's a good old 556 ammunition. From Rumble, who says, the chemtrails pissed me off. You know who the chemtrails really piss off? My wife. We walk out there and one of those beautiful days, and she'll look up in the sky and she'll be like, the chemtrails. And here, oh my goodness, it's not funny to laugh at because I feel bad, but she hates these chemtrails, and I do too. So I'm going to show a picture of this, and I should do a show on chemtrails at some point. Let me pull something up. For those of you that aren't familiar with chemtrails, and everyone says it's a conspiracy theory, it's not. So let me pull up some pictures here. Okay, so you see these things? These are chemtrails. Okay, so look, Smithsonian Magazine says science officially debunks chemtrails. These people are just nuts. Yeah, so again, they're going to say either conspiracy theories, etc. This is what they call chemtrails. Folks, what they're doing is they're dumping chemicals on us. That's what these are. They're it's called geoengineering. They're dumping chemicals on us. They're real. It's not a conspiracy theory. I'll do a show on these one day. What's that, Kate? Yeah, it's altering the weather. They call it cloud seeding. So anyway, I'll do a show on this, but this is what chemtrails are. Now, what we're doing is actually we're in the process of constructing, and I think I'll be done soon, and I'll show you what it was done, but we're building what's called a chem buster. And this is, I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I hate them so much too. So you can build these things, they work with orgone, and they can actually disperse a lot of the heavy metals and stuff that come from the chemtrails. So I'll let you know how it goes. But anyway, so yeah, back to the original comment from FMJ 556mm. I hate chemtrails too. They really piss me off. All right, so from YouTube, we have Shirley B. and Marlena Fina, who says, where is Trump when we need him? Trump is hard at work, but God is the only one we need to turn to. Yeah, so it is a big question. And I'm not going to get into the whole devolution thing very much on this because I don't want to go down that rabbit trail right now. But the reality is that I do believe Trump is working. He's working to help save our country. But in whatever plan that he had in place, whatever devolution plans he had in place, to me, it's painfully obvious now that the evil is fighting really hard. And there's a lot of things that the evil has put into place that Trump is not able to stop. And so there's a lot of patriots out there that they consistently say, look, that Trump is in control. And, look, folks, we're entering into an engineered crisis like we've never seen before. We're seeing the collapse of the US dollar. We're seeing the collapse of our food system. Look, I remember when Afghanistan happened, I thought, this is kind of crazy. How is this still happening? And Trump still has control. The military is in control. I said, okay, maybe there's certain things he can't control. But by the point we are right now, for me, it's obvious that Trump does not have full control over the world like a lot of people want you to believe that he does. Do I think that he's still fighting and working with the military and people? In some ways, absolutely. I think he's still fighting to save our country. But the reality is that he's not able to stop what's coming. And what's coming is going to alter the way of life for people around the world. And so, look, I hope, I wish, and you've heard me say this before, I wish that he was out there on his campaign trail telling people to grow gardens. I wish he was telling people to stock up on food. I wish he was telling people to try if they can to get out of the big cities. And look, his voice is very loud, and what he says echoes around the world in ways that I don't understand the ramifications, and he might have his reasons for that. But if you look at what happened during World War I, our government actively told people to grow, they call them war gardens and they called them victory gardens. The government was actively telling its citizens to plant gardens, to learn how to can, to learn how to preserve. None of our politicians are telling us now. None. And that's a big red flag for me. So I agree. I wish that, I agree we need him. We need him in the White House. We need him negotiating with the Middle East. We need him negotiating with China. We need him stepping in with what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. But he's not. And here we are. So I guess, I think that what you said, though, is that, God is the one we need to turn to. So, all right, Elizabeth Ann from Facebook, who says, I have no generator and am all alone here in Indiana. I have nobody, not even family, help me through the tough times. I'm sorry to hear that, Elizabeth. But I would say try to find some local groups. Just try. You will find them. And honestly, also ask God. Say, God, please help bring some people into my life. People into, have God bring some people into my life to meet. And I can tell you too, look, Kate and I moved to an area of Ohio. I knew nobody here, not a single person that I know here. And my closest family lives over an hour away, and it's very, very lonely actually. But we've really put our minds to say, look, I really want to meet people, and we've been meeting the most amazing people. We met this couple that owns a permaculture farm, like less than 30 minutes from here, and they're now going to be helping us design our property for planting. We met a guy locally, which I have to call actually in the next couple of days, who's a beekeeper. He lives 10 minutes away, who's going to teach me how to raise bees. We met another guy who's a filmmaker who actually is helping. We're doing some Man in America production films. And he came to my house like last week, and he's filming, and we're working together. And he's telling me he just bought a house like less than 30 minutes away from here in Amish country. And he's telling us like great tips on canning and everything. Even our neighbors that we met, which, like I said, they're doctors, they're wonderful patriots. So again, like, you might not have family close to you, but there are patriots just like you all over. And if you can just reach out, you're going to meet these people. I promise you that. Just hang in there. I know it's tough. Just hang in there. Scott Monson, would you consider meditating, praying, sending out loving, healing energy out to the world? I do all the time. I am constantly praying for just for mankind, and praying to allow people to see through the delusion of the evil, to allow people to find the truth at this time. And I'm also praying just to help, saying, God, please eliminate this evil that's on this earth. So I'm very actively doing that. I think it's good for all of us too. Thank you for mentioning that, Scott. Green Eye, do you think the midterms will help avert some of the crises? This is from Green Eye on Rise TV. So look, let's just say that the midterms go really well, and we flip the House and Senate, et cetera, and we have a lot more just kind of Patriots or America First people in there. It can help things, but in my opinion, all it can do is help slow things down. look, from all the research I've done, what is unfolding in our world, it's so much bigger than America. It's so much bigger than who's in Congress, or it's so much bigger than who's in the White House even. It's almost as if there was these dominoes set up, let's say 100 years ago, and those dominoes got flicked 100 years ago. And it's actually been much longer than that. What we're experiencing now is the dominoes hitting and hitting and hitting, and they're reaching the surface. What is happening, I believe can't be undone. And actually, I'll do a show on this at a later point, because there's a lot of historical references to look at with this. But what we're seeing happening, look, everyone wanted Trump to get in 2016 and drain the swamp. And he did a lot of amazing things. Even if Trump had 2 terms, he would not have been able to stop what's coming. And I know that it's a little bit harsh. I think that he would have lessened it. He would have slowed it down. He would have put us in a better situation to handle it. But Trump couldn't stop a global financial collapse. No, you saw even the things that he was trying to stop in America, he had a hard time doing. Do you think Trump will be powerful enough to affect the entire world and to affect this global collapse of their food systems and the dollar that they've been planning for a really, really, really long time? He could have helped to slow it down, perhaps, but I think that he just would have been it. So I do think I agree with you. If we do really well in the midterms, and I'm saying, look, I'm not discouraging anybody from voting. I'll be voting in the midterms as well, because we still have to. That's our duty as an American citizen to cast our vote for those that represent our country properly and represent the values that we care about. But I don't think that the midterms can avert the crises that are approaching. So from YouTube, Jay Lubliner, who says, most people don't see the great things happening around the world. That's right, actually. There are some good things that are happening, and I could probably do better to focus on some of those good things. But yeah, there are a lot of good things that are happening around the world. There's good things that are happening in your neighborhood. There are good things that are happening across the country. Actually, just today, this morning, I think it was the Senate in Florida just passed into law. They've stripped Disney of its tax. I think it's a tax exempt status or something that happened with Disney and its right to self-governance. So I don't know the specifics of it. That's a significant win. It's a big blow dealt to Disney in Florida today. So there are good things happening around the world, and they're seeing a lot of kindness and a lot of people that realize what's happening. They're standing up. They're coming together as common citizens of this world, and they're helping each other out. So there is still, look, here's the thing is, look, as rotten as our world is, and as evil as the cabal and the elites and whatever you want to call these people are, there are so many good-natured human beings on earth. Just good people. And so that gives me hope, because whatever disaster might be ahead of us, I really believe that it's mostly going to affect the bad people. And the good people, we will have difficult times, but difficult times a lot of times make us better people even themselves. So while it's tough and these bad times I think are ahead of us, the good people I believe really will make it through. And that's why I emphasize morality and faith a lot in what I talk about. So Emmanuel Goldstein, this is from Rumble. What can I do to convince you that Putin isn't a good guy at all? Well, I'm not sure what you can do to convince me. I'm not saying Putin's a good guy. I can say, though, I think Putin is a nationalist, right? So if Putin has it his way, look, I believe Putin would want America to fall. Like, I'm not saying Putin's pro-America. If you look at who's behind a lot of the woes of the world, it goes straight back to the American corporations, the American government. Like, as the American people, like, we're good people, but our government, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of our government, not just the government, it's the corporatocracy, which this is a whole other deep dive. If you want to learn about the American government and the American corporations, go read Confessions of an Economic Hitman. I'm just finishing the book, incredible book. But look, America has a lot of evil, and a lot of the woes that we're seeing in the world, whether it's starving people in third world countries or wars or coups in governments, presidential assassinations, it goes straight back to the American government. So look, Putin, while I think he probably sees the American people are good people, my guess is he wants America to fall because he knows that America, the government of America, has become this this, what would you even call it? Like a global monstrosity of corporations merged with governments, merged with banks that is just terrorizing the world. So look, I'm not saying that Putin's a good guy. What I'm saying though is that Putin, I believe, is against the central banking system. He's against the New World Order. He's against the globalization. He's against the global empire that the European bankers, the elites are all trying to build. And so you could say the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Yes, well, currently, right now, he is the enemy of my enemy. So that's my perspective on Putin. So I'm not trying to say he's a good guy. From YouTube, Disco Winter. Aren't there two resets happening? So I'm not sure exactly what you mean by two resets, but if I was going to extrapolate that, yeah, I think that there are two resets. In a lot of ways, I think that there is Satan's reset, which is the Great Reset. I think there's also God's reset, which we'll call it the God reset. And so I think that the Great Reset from Satan is exactly what these globalists are pushing. They want to reset our society into a technocracy. They want to destroy all the systems. They want to destroy the fiat currency systems that they've built and they've used and they've milked every last cent out of. And now that they're at the very end of using it, they want to destroy it. Why do you think government is printing trillions of dollars right now, or the Federal Reserve? Because they know the currency is going to collapse. They're trying to get as much out of it as they can before that happens. So I believe that there are two resets. There's their reset, which is trying to move us into this mark of the beast system where they have full control over humanity. But then I also think that there's God's great reset. And it's a very different reset. I think it's actually using that same reset to rid the world of this evil Kabbalah system. And so what we're going to get to on the other side of this, now this might be 5 years, 10 years, it could be 20 years. But on the other side of that reset process, I will believe that we will be in what God has built for us at that time. So I believe that we'll be entering into God's reset, even though it looks like we're entering into the Satan's great reset. So I believe that. Okay, so this is from Debs, who says, this is from Rise, who says, trash is important. When it does happen, have bags for trash. There will be no collection services and places to put it because of rodents. Actually, this is a really important point in terms of prepping. So I told you I was just at Costco. I just bought like 4 giant boxes of trash bags. So yes, trash is really important, and you might have to actually be burning your trash in the future. Maybe it's important to go get a 55-gallon or a 50-gallon drum to burn trash in. Sorry, all you environmentalists. Like, if you can't feed your family, you're not going to be caring about global warming. Trust me. But yeah, trash is important, and thinking about how to process and contain trash, especially if you're living in a city. What's going to happen if trash services stop? Look, I lived in New York City for almost 15 years. I can tell you when the trash services shut down or stop, you do not want to be on those streets. So yes, that's important. Okay, so this is from Rise, from Mimi Foxy. Is Seth going to the Trump rally? I don't know. I applied for a media pass to go to the Trump rally as a media. I haven't heard back yet. If I don't get the media pass, I'm not sure if I'm going to go, just because I don't really have an entire day to go wait in line and everything. I just got so much going on right now. But if I get the media pass, I look at it as, okay, this is my blessing to go and cover it and be there and do well as representing, the Man in America audience there. So I'll let you know if I'm going to go. As of right now, I'm still pending in my status. Okay, from YouTube, this is from Tina Bibby. Hi, Seth. We joined Rise TV last month. Welcome. Thank you, Tina Bibby, for joining Rise TV. I really appreciate that. And so for all of you that are on Rise TV, just a big thank you, because you are the reason why we can do what we're doing on Rise TV. It's because it's powered by the people like you. So I really appreciate it. And Tina Bibby, thank you so much for becoming part of Rise TV. Okay, so here's from Rise. This is from Mother Slay, who says, if you use diatomaceous earth beings, you said it's ground up fossils, does that give a gritty texture to rice and flour? So I don't think so the diatomaceous earth is a powder that it's more of a powder than flour. It is so powdery. Actually, you'd be really careful with it because it's so easy to get into the air. Like last night, I was putting together some 5-gallon buckets of rice, and I shook it up a little bit, and it just shot a cloud of powder into the air. I think Kate probably looked at me like I was nuts, because it was like this like a mushroom cloud of powder went off in our kitchen of diatomaceous earth. So it's actually really, really, really fine. So I haven't cooked yet with it. I haven't used it because everything I'm using diatomaceous earth is going into storage. So whether it's rice or beans or rice, I haven't made it. But my guess is that you wouldn't even notice it. Like I know you can put it into smoothies and such, but it's like a very, very like light powder. If you went like and blew out a little bit, it would just create a giant cloud. That's how light it is. Okay. Yeah, it also it does help as well for cleaning out parasites. It's good for animals. If you have farm animals, for chickens, say your chickens have mites, it's good for parasites, but also for you. You can eliminate, say you have a tapeworm or any parasites, which we all have parasites, especially if you have pets. If you have pets living indoors with you, you have parasites. Just a reality. So say you put diatomaceous earth in a smoothie, you can help that. It'll help you eliminate parasites from your intestinal tract, which is where a lot of them live. But don't take that as medical advice. Go research it on your own. Not responsible if you start downing diatomaceous earth, and who knows what happens. So. Okay, so YouTube, this is from Creations from Lace, who says, would you consider interviewing Andreas Kalker to discuss chlorine dioxide and the benefits of reversing jab and long haul C19 effects? Yes. Dom, can you make a note of Andreas Kalker? Then just kind of put that in a note. Maybe we can reach out and do an interview. So thank you, Creations from Lace. Okay, so we've got now, this is from Rumble. Ralphie Vila question: how can a family of 5 start prepping and gardening, especially if we do not have any experience doing it? Well, gosh, great question. And I think one is anything that you can do to get your kids involved, if you're a family of 5, I think is going to be great. So far, the only thing June does in terms of prepping is make a mess. So she's not really that useful with prepping. She usually goes in, if I'm filling up a bucket with rice, she walks over and takes the rice and throws it on the floor. So she's not a very useful prepper yet, but we're going to be starting her young. I would say that starting off first, so for us, for instance, for gardening, we started with a small raised bed, square foot garden. You can look up the square foot gardening method. It's a really easy like introduction to gardening where you basically, so we built these 4x8 beds using 12 inch by 8 foot boards. So you buy 12 foot long, 8 foot long, 12 inch tall boards. You can build a raised bed. You can get some dirt or soil. And what you do is you grid the garden off by every square foot and then you plant. But it's a really easy because you learn how much size, the size that each plant needs. So actually there's a book. Let me actually pull up a book for you really quick on Amazon. Sorry, one second. So there's a book on square foot gardening. I highly recommend this book. And this, because it does a lot of just information about gardening in here beyond square foot gardening. So this, I believe this is the book right here. So let me pull this up for you. And let me zoom in so you can see it a little better. I would really, if anybody that's interested in gardening, this is a book I would recommend. It's in that I bought this book, a couple of years ago, but it's called The All New Square Foot Gardening. This is the 3rd edition. So this gives you a great introduction to gardening because you go in there and it shows you. So this right here, let me go down and show you. This is the square foot gardening method, is you build a little raised bed like that. And then it tells you, so say you want to plant carrots. It'll tell you, okay, you put 9 carrot seeds per square. So a lot of it's about how to maximize your gardening. So for Kate and I, we had 3 different square foot gardens or 3 raised beds. We produced so much food from those raised beds. It was incredible. We had like a forest of tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers. So this is a really good place to start with this book. Great tutorials. It walks you through everything. So this is what I would recommend. So again, that's on Amazon. If you can avoid Amazon, I would recommend it. But this is a great place to start. The all new square foot gardening. So that's one thing. The other thing is that if you're you're new to prepping in general, gardening is only one part of that. If you want to learn canning, for instance, is a great skill. There's lots of YouTube videos. We're just going to be starting that journey ourselves because it's a new process for us. You can get a pressure canner for not that much money. There's some inexpensive ones, maybe $100 to get a pressure canner. You can start canning. Depending on where you're at, if you're in a more rural area, chickens are a great place to start if you can. But I think that's just the big thing is just start watching and learning. There's a lot of very, very good resources for free on YouTube. There's prepping channels. I did a whole show on prepping. I'll be doing it more. We're going to be as we do more on our land, we're going to start filming it. And we're going to start sharing with you our process of prepping on our land, so you can see like, oh, okay, this is what our chicken coop looks like, or here's why we're planting comfrey, or here's what our gardens look like. So, but yeah, reading and watching is a key for that. Oh, so yeah, we had some comments. I've got so diatomaceous earth. Be careful. There's a lot of comments saying don't breathe it in and don't get it in your eyes, which is true. Like I was kind of an idiot for doing that. So also make sure you get food grade diatomaceous earth. And yes, when you're working with it, this is probably one of the instances where I would recommend wearing a mask, though I'm extremely anti-mask. If you're protecting your lungs from diatomaceous earth, probably a good thing. So you might want to wear a mask and goggles if you're doing it. So yeah, don't do what I did and create a mushroom cloud of diatomaceous earth in the kitchen. All right, so here's Metal Avenger from Rise, which nice to see you, Metal Avenger, who says, many of my family members don't believe in prepping. Many are not even in the same country as me, so I can't help them. How to deal with the possibility that they won't make it? Yeah, that's a difficult one because if there are food shortages and if there are people that are truly unprepared, that might be difficult. And I can't say I have any advice on how to prepare for if they don't make it. I mean, I guess the one thing I would say is that right now there's still a window, and you're their family. Hopefully they listen to you a little bit. Just keep talking to them. And this is an important thing I'll tell you in general, is that there's a lot of people that say, hey, my family, they don't listen to me. My friends don't listen to me, whether it's talking about the jab or about prepping or any of these things. Look, just keep at it. Keep planting those little seeds, because there's going to be a time where people can't ignore this. And so even if your family is ignoring you right now, you talk about prepping, like, it's kind of a conspiracy. Don't let it get to you. Keep talking to them, because what you're doing is you're planting these seeds. And so then hopefully when things start to really turn and things start to get a little bit more bad, they're going to see it sooner than everybody else, because they already have that foundation you've laid for them. So that's why I'd recommend is that right now, look, just try to keep your head up. Just try to keep giving these little bits of advice. Just keep kind of planting those seeds for them, because there will be a day where it clicks and they say, oh, wow, I should take this more seriously. And they're going to know a lot about it, and they're going to know to come to you. So that's my best advice for you. So from YouTube, this is who says, Joss Dream One, I live in the desert. Is there a way that I can make my pool water drinkable? So, well, one is if you get a really good filter. So we just got a Berkey filter. And so I believe a Berkey would even filter pool water. Kate, let me know what you think, but I'm pretty sure that a Berkey would. I'm going to pull it up for you to show you here. So a Berkey, let's see, I'll show you exactly what we got. So this is so let me pull this up. So this is, it's Berkey. It's Berkey. So they make these filters. These are countertop. So these water filters remove up to 99.99% of chlorine. So if you have one of these water filters, they're a little bit pricey, but they're really worth it. We just got one like last week, and it's like the best water I've ever had. If you have one of these, you could literally pour your pool water into this thing and drink it. So, and there's your solution. Now, if you can't say get one of these, there's also what's called like the Sawyer Life Straw. Let me bring this up for you as well. So there's also these little life straws that you can use that Now, I'm not sure about whether these will filter, do your research, but there's really inexpensive ways to filter if it's an emergency as well. So, but I'd recommend just getting a filter of some sort. But if you can set up if you have a house and you can set up a rainwater collection system, which is what I'm currently working on, and I'll film it and I'll share it with you once I get a little further along. But rainwater collection is a really important way of also giving yourself a sustainable water source. And rainwater is one of the cleanest waters that you're going to find. Also, a well. So if you live in an area where you have land, so you're not like in the middle of a city, you can actually dig your own well. So this is also something I'm working on right now. I just bought the parts for it. It's about $300 to $400, but you can actually put in your own well. Use what's called a drive point method. I'll show you a picture of this actually right here. So drive point well. So you can literally, let me show this to you. You can do a well using what's called a drive point well. So how this works is you just drive in. They have a stake like this that then attaches to galvanized pipe, and you can drive in your own well. Usually it has to be within less than 25 feet. And this is what we're doing on our property, because now you have a fresh water source that even without power, you have the old school cast iron way of pumping water. So there's a lot of solutions for water, but I'm glad you're thinking about water, because water is the most important part of prepping, is making sure that you have a water source or a way to get access to water. Really, really important. It's a great, great question. Okay, so this is from Rise. This is from Mrs. So-and-so, who says, how are we going to stop them from locking us down again? I see it coming. They need it to rig the midterms. You can't say the E word there because I'm on YouTube. So yeah, I don't know. I think that the best thing, for me, is I've purposely moved to an area where the lockdowns won't affect me as much. But look, I lived during the last lockdowns. I lived in Columbus, and it sucked. I mean, how are you going to stop it? Like, you can still go out, but if your store's closed, like, the best way, in my own experience, in my opinion, the best way to stop the lockdowns is to put yourself into an area where you have a community of people that will not abide by the lockdowns, right? Which is not going to be the big cities. The big cities, they're usually going to be more liberal. They've got more rules and restrictions, more codes. So you're going to see if they want to lock down, you're going to see every store shut down except for Walmart, or the big groceries, the big box stores, which is terrible, of course. But if you live in a more rural area, maybe the local person who owns a farm market, they might say, I'm not shutting down. Screw it. So that's one suggestion, is that there are certain areas they're going to have a much more difficult time locking down. But yeah, I think that for me, it's in every way possible. My motto is do not comply. So I'll do not comply in every way I can. But of course, if someone shuts down, if the local grocery store shuts down, I can't refuse to comply and still go in there and buy groceries, right? So I've kind of chosen to do not comply by moving to an area where hopefully the region around me also does not comply. I also think that if they come out with lockdown 2.0 this fall, ahead of the midterms, after the midterms, I think that we're going to see a lot more Americans refusing to comply, especially after all this BS that we see through the last 2.5 years. Look, a lot of my friends that are more liberal, they're sick of it. They're like, I'm not getting any more boosters. I'm done with this. I'm done with the mask. I'm done with this. I think we're going to see a lot more American people stand up. So that's the big thing, is really to stand up, make your voice heard. If there are local protests locally, that, this is our right as Americans, that we can go out and we have our freedom of speech, that we can go out and protest. So if there are local things you can get involved with to oppose lockdowns, et cetera, try to do that. That's going to be a big one. Okay, Michelle Therese, who says, this is from YouTube, dried onions, garlic, spices, etc. Stock up on those to help spice up boring, repetitive dishes if there are serious shortages and you're eating lentils every day. Welcome to my wife's life. She's probably stocked up on every known spice and herb and everything. We've got Mylar bags of it. It's full of this stuff. So it's also a really important point, is that, look, if you're stuck on eating this rice and beans, if you've got your kind of Mexican seasoning mix, your Indian seasoning mix, that can go a long way with making that food enjoyable. Not to mention that a lot of these herbs and spices are really healthy for us. There's a lot of medicinal benefits. So Kate recently bought a cookbook on Indian cooking, on how to, it was like family style Indian cooking. And so she's learning how to cook Indian because Indians are the masters at making rice and lentils taste amazing. And a lot of their spices are based on a lot of the Ayurvedic medicinal practices. So a lot of their spice mixes are actually built and they're mixed in a way that they really help with our gut and our overall health. So yeah, if you wanna have a meals during some difficult times that you're enjoying, that's a recommendation. Look into cultures that have a heavy rice-based way of eating, India or say Latin America, and look at the spices that they're using, and buy some cookbooks. That's the other thing too. Is this in general, folks? If you can, buy physical books. Now is the time to get books on whether it's homesteading, books on raising animals, books on traditional medicine. How to use herbs for healing, gardening, cookbooks. That now's the time. Actually, so right now we're in the process of looking for a book. We're going to try to find a book of the cookbook for how people eat during the Depression. It's got to be out there. It's like a cookbook of how grandma made food taste good when she only had potatoes, right? So that's an important thing. So this is from David 911 on Rise. Seth, do you watch And We Know? A great Christian patriot Marine Corps guy. So I listen to And We Know sometimes over on Rumble. I haven't lately, but And We Know is one of the ones that I occasionally kind of open up and listen and see what they're saying over there. I had to say probably one of the people I would recommend the most is Bards FM. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Bards FM, Scott Kesterson. I hope to have him on the show. We've been having a hard time getting a hold of each other through email, but he has an excellent podcast, and he does it, I think, 2 or 3 shows every day. So just search for Bards FM. He is on, actually, I'll show you really quick. So Bards FM. He's on Podbean is where he's very commonly on. So this is him right here. So if you get a chance, this is Bards FM. That's what his show looks like. Bards of War, Scott Kesterson. In my opinion, this is one of the best podcasts out there. He talks a lot about faith, a lot about God, a lot about prepping, a lot about this exposing the government. He's someone that I do recommend. He's got a lot of wisdom in what he talks about. So I would recommend him for sure. So, okay. So, all right. Janet Knapp from YouTube, who says, using the strategic reserves, will this cost Americans in the long run? Yes, I believe that Biden's using our strategic oil reserves will absolutely cost us for sure. And I think that's the intention. Like that's absolutely the intention. Look, Trump had us for the first time in I forget how many years, maybe it was 70 years or, it was the first time in a very long time that America was energy independent. I mean, we did not rely on outside energy inputs. So now look at the situation that we're in right now. So yeah, I think that Biden kind of burning through our oil reserves is absolutely part of the same plan to collapse our food system and to collapse the financial system, everything. Like Biden is proactively demolishing the United States. That's the reality, folks. It is what it is. So I think so. Absolutely. Okay, so this is from Rise. This is from Jenny O, who says, I have money in an HSA account. Given the uncertainties of the US dollar, would you recommend trying to spend that down? So in general, what I recommend, just if you have money sitting in accounts anywhere, whether it's an IRA, an HSA account, say HSA, if I'm not mistaken, is more of a health account. So yeah, if you can take advantage of right now to get dentistry done, which is what we need to, actually, I need to book that for Kate and I to get our teeth looked at, and I need to get a few more pairs of glasses. Now is the time to do things that you may not be able to do in the future. And so say you have money sitting in an IRA that's just sitting there, A, either put it into silver or gold, or B, put it into land, put it into real tangible assets. The dollar bill has no value. It's a fiat currency. It is a promissory note. That's all it is. Real currency is something that you can hold in your hand. It's a piece of silver. It is a box of 9mm ammunition. It is a packet of seeds. So I really recommend trying to transfer more of your wealth into real tangible assets. All right, so here is a YouTube comment. This is from Connie Donnelly, who says, I'm watching this at Rise TV. I logged into Facebook to share and chat. It's worth $9.99 a month. So thank you, Connie Donnelly over at Rise TV. And thank you for saying it's worth $9.99 a month. And I certainly agree with you. I think that it is. And the people that are over there seem to really love it. And people consistently say, you know what? They say Rise TV is what helps me stay sane. So yeah, thank you for being there, Connie. We appreciate having you on there. Okay, so Pamela White, hello, Pamela, over on Rise TV, who says, I got 5 chicks to start getting more. We're in the city, so we can't have many. Thinking of chickens to eat, so I have both kinds or just stick to laying chicks. So this is actually a good discussion because there's 2 kinds of chickens. You have meat birds and laying birds. Now, there's also birds that they say are dual purpose birds, like barred rock are dual purpose, meaning that they're pretty good layers, which means that certain birds are, if they're only bred for being meat birds, they're not prolific layers and you won't get as many eggs out of them every year. But also you have certain birds that are much more layer birds, like they lay a lot of eggs, but they're really skinny. You can't really eat them. But there's also chickens that are dual purpose birds. And so all the chickens that we've been buying, we've tried to get dual purpose birds. We also recently got a rooster, so that in the future, so right now we're just using our chicks for laying and that's it. But we've got one of our hens is clucky, meaning that she wants to sit on the eggs all day. So we're going to let her hatch maybe eight or 9 eggs or so and raise them. But because we're also looking right now, our intention is eggs. But in the future, if we need to raise chickens for food, I want to be able to have dual purpose birds for that purpose. And I can tell you that if your question, you're saying that you're in the city, so you can't have many, I would then focus on egg laying birds right now, because for chickens and this is me speaking to you as an extremely amateur chicken person, but if you're raising chickens for meat, you need a lot bigger of a setup because you have to be raising new chicks. The chicks that are raised, half of them might be roosters. You can't raise roosters for meat, so they have to be sold or you given away. Usually you can't people have roosters will give you for free because they're kind of useless unless you're trying to breed more chickens. So for a lot of reasons, I'd recommend really focusing on egg laying chickens. I hope that if you bought your chicks, I hope that you bought sexed chicks, or maybe you actually hatch them, but the roosters won't be very much use to you, especially if you're living in a city. Your neighbors won't be very happy if you've got 3 roosters crowing. We've got 1 rooster in the country, and I'm already worried about my neighbors, what they might be saying. But at the same time, it's like, look, I need to be able to support my family. And maybe in the future, I'll give them some eggs and a chicken and say, oh, okay, it makes sense. I'm okay with your rooster. Thank you for the eggs. Okay, so here's a Telegram user. This is from this is from Bud Elk, who says, Seth, do you have a pond or lake on your property? I see my lake as my refrigerator if the world blows up. It's stocked full of catfish, bluegill, and bass. Right now, it is a catch and release only. That could change in the future. So, Bud, yeah, thank you for that comment. So we have a small pond. It's maybe 3/4 of an acre that we share it with 2 other neighbors. But I'm not sure if they're looking at it as a fridge. Like I look at it, I've already been looking at this thinking, okay, this is going to be great to eat from. It's already stocked, though I've been doing a little bit of research as to what I can stock it with further, mostly like panfish, bluegill or perch would be good fish to put in there for stocking. And make sure there's a good balance, though, of bass, catfish is a whole kind of way you approach stocking a pond properly. But you're right, though, absolutely. My grandmother, who grew up in Southern Ohio, that's actually my great-grandmother, and she lived through the Depression. And as a child, I remember her telling me that when they were going through the Great Depression, they were so poor, like ridiculously poor. They had nothing. And they lived off their land, basically. But she would have a catfish line across the river, and every morning she'd have to go out to the river and pull in whatever catfish they caught because that was a big source of food for them. So yeah, if you do have access to a pond or a lake, I would definitely recommend getting a fishing pool and even going out and learning how to fish if you don't know already, because that water source could be a good source of meat for you. Okay, so Agenda 21 Truth 1. This is from YouTube. Growing my first crop of garlic that is growing great. Can't wait to harvest this June, July. And I have also been buying books, and we just purchased a Depression-era cookbook. So maybe I'm not sure your comment came in, and probably actually before my comment, because this is recently said that we're looking for that. So yeah, good on you for that. So that's great that you found a depression era cookbook. So that's what we're gonna have to look for. I'll have to note that, but also great for you, good for you on gardening. And I'll tell you, it's so exciting. Even the other day I was outside because we planted snow peas or some variations of peas, and I think that they're climbing peas. Anyway, that they're all sprouting up. And it's the most wonderful experience when you go out and you watch your garden every day and you see that there's a new plant coming, it's growing. It's one of those beautiful processes. And just this little seed, it's amazing. This little seed. It's it's funny because growing up, my mom would always say, she goes, Seth, look at this flower. How could anybody not believe in God? Look at this beautiful flower that comes up every spring. Or look at the beautiful bird. How could anybody not believe in God? It's true. Like the other day I was talking with Kate, you had a handful of seeds. And it's like this small handful of seeds over time could feed an entire village as the plant grows and it creates more seeds, and it's just amazing. So gardening is this beautiful process, and it really, really gets you closer to God. It really does. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so this is from Rumble. This is from Healing Animals 17, who says, what is the best way to store dry beans and such? Rice, flour, etc. I have some in the freezer right now with solar power, but I'm out of a freezer space and need a backup if the solar fails. Well, so it's good that you've already got solar power hooked up. That's great. You're already one step ahead. So one thing that Kate and I are working on doing is really we're trying to make our freezer obsolete. Right now, we still need it. We have a lot of stuff in there, but beef, etc. But we're trying to operate on the premise that we may not be able to have a freezer in the future. Because freezers require a lot of electricity. If you want to run a freezer off of solar, you can't. It's not some small solar kit that can do that for you. So in terms of storage, the one thing is that if they're dry rice and dry beans, it's also good. You can freeze them for 3 days before storing them. That kills off any insects in them. But what we're doing for storing things like rice, beans, lentils dry, is getting 5-gallon buckets or 2-gallon buckets or food grade with a sealable lid. And then what you do is like I talked about earlier, you use diatomaceous earth, which will kill off any of the parasites inside of there. So you'll mix up your beans and your rice with a little bit of diatomaceous earth. We use roughly about a cup per 5 gallons. So that just, do your own research on that though. So if we're storing rice or flour, so that's what we're storing, rice, flour, wheat berries. We got a hand mill for grinding wheat berries. Wheat berries last longer than actual flour. But what you're going to do is use these buckets. You can also put them into Mylar bags, seal the Mylar bags, and then put them into the buckets. But we're using 5-gallon food grade buckets for a lot of our rice storage. Now, if it's cooked rice or cooked items, then that's where I recommend either getting into canning or a freeze dryer. Freeze dryers, what I looked into it, they're really expensive though. So we're going to focus on canning. So that's something we're going to do like in June, July, we're buying half of a cow. So if you have a local farmer, you can buy half a butchered cow. And then we're going to be we have a lot of meat left over from our previous cow purchase. You can take that and you can can a lot of it. And so canned beef will last over a decade if you do it properly on a shelf in a can. So that's how we're doing that. Okay. All right. This is from Telegram. This is from Bert Brash, who says, from a person whose family left the communist country of Cuba in 1961, I need to know whose side is the U.S. military on, because we're going to have to fight, not flee. Whoever it is to be free in America or not, a single family will be able to survive anywhere in the U.S. God help us. So that's a very, very good point. And kudos to you. I'm sure that I wish that more Americans could have the experience and knowledge that you and your family have after fleeing a communist country. I think a lot of people that are pushing these liberal ideals and political ideologies and just these socialist systems, if they went through what your family has been through, America would never be under the threat of communism. But it's all the useful idiots in here that buy into this indoctrination that are doing this to our country. So in terms of your question, though, whose side is the U.S. military on? It's a tough one. My understanding of it is that it's very fragmented. I think that there are a lot of people in the military that are patriots and that they care about the country, they care about our Constitution. Um, I don't believe that our entire military is controlled in the same way that, say, that you would have the CCP or the Chinese military. I don't believe that we have a military in America that, upon order, would turn against its own citizens. I know that you're seeing small bits of that play out. If you look at certain isolated regions, or like you look at what's happening in Canada with a lot of their police and military. But I do think that in America, especially because the police and the military, they're vowing to serve the Constitution in their role. And so because we have the Constitution, I do believe that a lot of the people that are in the armed forces and the local police, when push comes to shove, will end up taking the side of the citizens. That's my belief, and it's my hope. So I have to get a quick drink of coffee here. Coffee. If you're prepping, don't forget coffee. Actually, a reminder. So Kate, a reminder, she was telling me this morning, Seth, you better buy more coffee beans. I'd have a hard time without coffee, but I could do it if I had to, but I really enjoy my coffee. Okay. Shelly from Rise TV, who says, I've been building my homestead for 10 years and I don't keep it secret. I don't know people will come here. How do I turn away people with no skills? That's a tough one. That's a tough one. Because I do think that there could be a time in the future where a lot of people that don't prepare are going to people that did prepare. And this is a very difficult discussion. It's not easy to figure out the right approach to this, because look, if someone did not prepare and they come to you and say their family has no food, if you give them 5 pounds of rice, all that tells them is that you have enough rice to give away. And that 5 pounds of rice may last their family 2 weeks. So what's going to happen after that rice runs out? They're going to come back. So this is a difficult scenario, and I don't have the right answer for it. But there might be a time in the future where you just have to turn people away, and where you have to say, look, I'm starving myself. Even if you have 6 months of food, you might have to say, look, I'm starving. I can't feed myself. I have nothing to give you. Because that might look, a lot of people are not preparing, and this might be a difficult time period. This is also why, as I talked about earlier, guns and ammunition are going to play a very important role in the future. Not because it's Mad Max and we're going to go around shooting everybody, but you might have to have a shotgun in hand and say, look, even though say you would never harm somebody, but it might get to a point in the future, and this is where I'm at mentally too with this, is it might get to a point in the future where people might come to your property to say, look, like, please feed us. You might have to have a shotgun and say, look, I cannot feed you, and do not step on my property. And as much as you might want to give everything to these people. And again, I hope it does not get to this. I hope that our society does not fall to that place, but it might. So yeah, I wish I had a good answer for you, but if you do have a homestead and a lot of people are aware that you have a homestead, I hope that you do have guns and ammunition. Not so you can go shooting everybody. Trust me. I hope I never, ever, ever have to harm another human being in my lifetime. I really sincerely hope that, and I pray for it. But even for the factor of being able to intimidate, it might be effective. So here's, this is from Rumble, from Elfin. Edge of Wonder was my red pill. I've been a subscriber since the very early days. I think within a few months. Wow, the new Rise TV umbrella is so great. So much enlightening content. Well, thank you, Elfin, for that comment. Actually, I'll show folks, I'm not sure if you are aware of this, but so Rise TV was originally edgeofwonder.tv, and I'm going to show you, because these guys, Edge of Wonder, they were the pioneers of the red pill movement. So here you can see, if you go up to Edge of Wonder, this is what they were talking about. So they had, oops, that's my show. Don't want to go there. Back onto here. So Edge of Wonder, this is Ben and Rob from Edge of Wonder. These guys have put out so much amazing content. Their whole entire content library is on Rise TV. They've covered the true roots of communism. They've done so many series. They've got They just released an episode on Tartaria, the secret worlds, the cover-up of giants. It's an amazing Marco Polo's magical creatures, the real Middle Earth. They've covered transhumanism. They've just done so much amazing content. And so as part of what you get as being a subscriber on Rise TV, because look, these guys had a YouTube channel with over 500,000 people following, and they got kicked off right before the Hunter Biden laptop stuff. So their entire library is here for you. Look, they've done transhumanism, etc. So look, again, if you are wanting to support what we do, Rise TV is the best way to do it. It's $9.99 a month. There is great content on there, a great community. And again, there's a link in the description below. There's a link that you can get a free trial. And so just so you know, for those of you that are on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, this is your first time maybe experiencing this Q&A session. We do this every single show. At the end of my shows, I do right now I'm doing twice a week. I plan on increasing that. But at the end of every show, we do this. I hop on over to Rise TV. We do a Q&A. Sometimes I go for over an hour more over on Rise TV, just talking, just doing a Q&A. It's all live. So if you want to check it out, I highly recommend it. It's a great way to support what we're doing. And even more so, every Friday, we have a 2-hour show. Actually, I'll show you. I'll pull it back up for you. Every Friday, we have a 2-hour show called Friday Night Live, which is so much fun. It's kind of the end of the week. We kick back. It's usually me, Ben, and Rob, but we have guests that come on sometimes. And it is such a blast. We laugh. We tell jokes. Let me come down and show you. This is the Friday Night Live. Oh, it is such a fun show. Look at that. Oh, I'm going to full screen that. Look at those three guys. How could you not love that? So the three of us come on there every Friday for 2 hours, and we take questions, we do comments, we tell jokes. Sometimes I'm crying because I'm laughing so much. I'm literally, sometimes on these FNL shows, I'm literally crying. I got tears streaming because we're just laughing and we're having fun. So that's another big part of what makes Rise TV fun. So again, there's a link in the description below. Get a free trial. Join us over on there. It's a great place. So anyway, so back to the Q&A. Let's see. Let's go. I'm just going to take a quick look. We have so many questions still. It's lovely. I love it. We're going to keep going though. I'm loving this. Okay. So this is from YouTube from JD, who says, why did Trump give Bill Gates and Gavi, which Gavi is, Kate, what's Gavi stand for again? The Global Alliance of Vaccine. I forget what Gavi stands for, but Gavi is basically one of the big globalist organizations that's pushing the New World Order agenda and the vaccine stuff. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a global vaccine alliance. But anyways, I don't know. I don't know why Trump gave Bill Gates and Gavi over $1 billion. There's a lot of, look, I'll be honest with you. Do I trust Trump? Yes. I think of all the politicians we've had in DC, I trust Trump more than any of them. But there's a lot of things that Trump has done that I can't make sense of. So, it doesn't mean I don't trust Trump or that I'm anti-Trump. Do I want him back in the White House? Absolutely. If he ran today, right now, would I vote for him? Absolutely. But there's still some things that make me suspicious. And that's because I'm just trying to be discerning. Okay, so this is from Telegram from Joan. Seth, do you believe in the pre-tribulation rapture of the church? So, I've done a little bit, kind of digging into some of the specifics of the Bible and Revelation, and I believe in the overarching concept of it, but I think that some of the specifics, I try not to dig into the specifics of here's what stage that we're at, and this is exactly what's happening. This is what will happen, because I can't discern it well enough. And I don't know. I think that certain things change, but it's not that the Bible's wrong. It's just that it may not be what we think it is, and it might be referring to something that happened previously, or so. That's why you probably notice I don't dig into a lot of the specifics on my shows of the Bible, or what the Bible says specifically, because I don't know enough to make that a solid point, and I believe that there's multiple timelines happening, and it's just a tricky thing. So I usually tend to stay away from it. So, but I believe in the overarching kind of concept of where we're at right now and where we're headed. Okay, here's Metal Avenger from Rise. What do you think will happen to retirement funds and retirement insurances and life insurances? Will all that be worthless? Would it be better to invest in precious metals instead? Yes. And whether you invest in precious metals or land or anything like that, I think that we're going to see Social Security, retirement funds, retirement pensions, they're all going to get wiped out. They're all going to become zero. I hate to, I know it's scary for a lot of people, especially those of you that are at retirement age or that are relying on Social Security. If the dollar collapses, if hyperinflation hits that amount, so yes, I think it's all going to get zeroed out. And here's one way to look at it too, is that like say you have a retirement pension and say your pension is $2,000 a month. That pension does not increase with inflation. So right now, that $2,000 a month, let's say right now inflation is at 0%, and let's just say it's $1,000 a month. Okay, if inflation is at 0%, that $1,000 gets you $1,000 worth of goods. Okay, if inflation goes up 100%, that $1,000 is now worth $500. If the inflation goes up 500%, that $1,000 is now worth $200. So as inflation gets up, any kind of fixed income, this is a really important thing to be aware of. We are seeing the beginnings of hyperinflation. And it's like the economists, they say, it happens very slowly and then all at once. If you go back and you look at, even if you look at the currency in Rome, and I'll share some of that with you one day, I'll do an episode on the fall of Rome. The inflation that happened in Rome, it was like this, and then it just went skyrocketed. And that's where you see countries like the Zimbabwe that have a dollar bill. It's like a $1 trillion bill or something like that. So, but what a key thing to understand about inflation is that fixed income does not increase with inflation. So if inflation goes up, what happens is your fixed income goes down and down and down, and its overall purchasing power. So that just is one thing to be aware of. Now, if there is a true collapse, unfortunately, that's the government is their financial coffers are going to be emptied out as well. And you're going to see a lot of those funds, whether it's retirement, et cetera, they're going to get emptied out. So I don't recommend, again, this is my own personal financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but I do not recommend keeping your money in these external accounts. I recommend at least not all of it. That's okay. Maybe you want to keep some of it in there. Great. But even if, say you've got $100,000 in an IRA, even if you pull out $10,000 and put it into silver, hypothetically, right? Because what's going to happen is that if those systems collapse, the value of gold is going to be in silver will most likely be the inverse. Because as those systems collapse, more people will be going towards silver and gold and precious metals. So even if you have only $5,000 in gold and silver and $100,000 in the stock market, that gold and silver might be enough for your family to really sustain in the future, because it's not going to hit hyperinflation like the dollar bills that you're going to be seeing. YouTube question from Disco Winter. With Noble Gold, do you hold the gold yourself? I keep hearing that if you don't hold it, it's not good. So very good question. And again, I'm not an expert on this, but I'll do my best to explain it to you. There's two ways so whether it's Noble Gold or a different gold buying company, that doesn't matter. This is how they work. There's two ways that you can purchase gold or silver. One is you do a direct purchase where you say, okay, I want to buy $10,000 in silver 1 ounce rounds. And you say, okay, $10,000, it's going to be this much. You'll get this many ounces. And then you say, okay, I'll do a bank transfer or a credit card or whatever. And they will ship you that silver, and you can hold that silver physically. It's yours. You purchased it the same way you'd purchased a pair of tennis shoes on Zappos. The other way is, let's just say you've got $100,000 sitting in an IRA, and you want to move that entire $100,000 into precious metals. So now most IRAs are set up in a way that there are penalties if you pull that money out before a certain age or before a certain time. There's taxes and penalties. I don't know the details of that. I don't have an IRA. So how it works, though, is if you say, yes, I want to take that $100,000 and put it into silver and gold, and I want to hold that gold and silver physically, then you have to pull the money. It's no different than just pulling the money out of your IRA and putting it into cash in your pocket. You will get penalized. The loophole is that you can use that $100,000 to buy silver or gold, physical silver or gold, that is held for you. And this is what Disco Winter is referring to. So there is it's almost like an escrow. There's a third-party vault that holds your gold and silver. So right now, gold's at roughly $2,000 an ounce. And say you wanted to take that $100,000 and buy 50 ounces of gold. But you don't want to pay a penalty. So how it works is, say through Noble Gold or another gold company, you would then give them the IRA details. They do a transfer. And they then transfer your IRA into 50 ounces of physical gold that you own personally. Now, to avoid paying the penalty on that gold, they have to hold it for you. The same way that your bank, look, if your money is sitting in an IRA, you're not holding that money. So, Vanguard's holding that money. So a third-party vault then holds that gold for you. Now, the vaults are in different locations. So you can actually go to that vault, and now it costs a little bit of money every year. It's a very small amount to store that gold for you. It's fully insured. You can literally go to that vault and you can look at your 50 ounces of physical gold that you own. Now, if you want to pull that out, then you pay penalties. And what I tell people is I say, look, I trust these systems that hold it for you. Like, I trust the integrity of these systems. I recommend keeping it and having them hold it in their vault. And if shit hits the fan, then that's when you pull it out. And as things get really rocky, that's when you tell them, you know what? I'll take the penalty. I'd rather have it in my hand. And so, because look, as things get worse and worse economically, the value of that gold might go up 30%. So now you've now paid for all of the fees and all the taxes. So again, you don't have to hold it. To answer your question, you don't have to hold it. But if you want to avoid those taxes and penalties, it's better to have them hold it for you. But at any point, you can say, look, I want it now, ship it to me, overnight it to me, and they'll get it to you very quickly. All right. So Tony Long, thank you also, Tony Long. You always have very good comments on Telegram. I wanted to tell you I appreciate that. You have very good comments, and you have a very good understanding of communism. So I really appreciate that. So Tony Long, you say, it's a struggle sometimes. Mentally, I feel the pressure of being here. Yet, I see it as an opportunity to improve and utilize this time well. It's an ebb and flow place here on the planet maze. However, God is with us. Sometimes I sense his mercy and empathy when we struggle, but we'll get through. So just thank you for that comment, Tony. That's a very, that's a very good comment. I appreciate that. And again, I really do appreciate how you respond and comment on things. You have a very good understanding of what's happening. And I agree that it's difficult. It is an ebb and flow. There's tough days, there's really tough days, and there's good days. But yeah, I believe, yes, God is with us, and we might struggle, but we will make it through. I absolutely agree. This is from Mindy over on Rise, who says, if you have kids 10 years and older, you might want to have them watch the communism series on Rise TV. They will learn what it really is, and you might learn something too. Actually, that's a good point. So I'll show you guys that again really quick. Let me pull that up. So over on Rise TV, this is on the home page. I highly, highly recommend you go watch this. So if you scroll down the home page, you'll see here is right there. This is the communism series. So if you go over there, there is a multi-part series that this is, I think, what is it? 8 parts. Yes, this is an 8-part series all about communism. So they've got everything from going into the roots of communism, the secret societies, the end game, the godfather of communism, who funded Lenin, Mao. They go extensively into Mao and communist China. They go into right here we say the handshake with the devil, right? Is Clinton shaking hands with when the Chinese premiers, going to organ harvesting. So again, if you want to learn about communism, and great comment, if you have kids 10 years or older, this is one of the most accurate series that you're going to find on communism, because there's a lot of stuff on communism, but a lot of them don't understand it well. But the team over at Rise TV and Edge of Wonder really understands communism. This is an excellent, excellent show. So yeah, thank you so much for mentioning that, because I think that communism and understanding communism and the history of communism is really, really, really important. It's like the person who commented that they came from communist Cuba. Um, Again, like I said, if the American people had the understanding of communism that people that lived through it had, we would not be in the situation that we are in. So, all right. So next question over here. All right, this is from Rise. This is from Fox 2. This has a statement: find ways to get in shape. If you're not in shape, you could be the loot for people that are. Fitness matters. It's actually that's a really, really good point. If you are not in physically good shape, that's really good point. So if you can sort of take that as part of your prepping, is getting into shape. It could be as walking every day, doing weight training. You'll find that if you have an opportunity, if you say you're on a homestead and you're working your property, that will help you get into good shape. And you're probably in better shape anyway if you have a homestead and you're working outside a lot. But being in good shape is really important. Also, medications. I know that some people, they have medications that they can't live without, so find ways of stocking up. But if you think you can wean off medications, especially big pharma medications, that's a really, really important part of prepping, because in the future you may not be able to get your heart medicine, you may not be able to get even your insulin. So you have to think about those scenarios and try to be proactive now about protecting yourselves in the future. Okay, so this is from Rumble, from Cynthia Remain. Hi, Cynthia. Hope you're doing well. One of my longtime Man in America fans, who says, a lot of people say to keep around $1,000 on hand in cash. Should we be buying metals with this instead of keeping cash on hand? I do. So I think it's a good idea to keep that money in cash. Even $1,000 is good to keep on cash. The reason being is that there might be a time period when credit cards no longer work, or say there's the grid goes down. This is actually a really good point. Thank you for mentioning it. If the grid goes down, or say there's a mass power outage of some sort, it's a grid down scenario, cash will become king for a very short period of time. So that might mean that you can do a quick trip to the grocery store, and they may not be able to process credit cards. You can't pull cash out of the ATM. So that $1,000 might mean that you can do one last big trip at the grocery store, because if the grid goes down, I'm not talking EMP scenario, because if an EMP happens, you can't even drive to the grocery store. That's not going to be a good scenario. But say the grid does go down, you can't access ATM, etc. Especially local grocery stores, they might say, look, we'll just take cash. In that scenario, you're going to have a couple of days worth of time where you can still purchase last minute things, and having that cash could be very handy. Also, if you had to go buy gasoline, last minute supplies. So keeping cash on hand is good. But beyond, say, a couple $1,000 you count on cash, if the rest of it you're putting into silver or gold, that's also a good idea. Okay, from YouTube. Sorry, folks, I need to get another drink here of my energy coffee. All right. Thank you. All right. So this is from Janet Knapp on YouTube, who says, waste nothing, eat or find uses. We can grow veggies from waste of vegetables if vegetables aren't available. It's a great point. So this is something that we've really tried to do in our home, that we don't waste anything. Of course, we still throw away trash, which I want to try to reduce that. But for us, we have two corgis, which protect our chickens, kinda. We've got our chickens, we have compost. So we waste no food scrap anymore. But you also find that a lot of vegetable scraps, you're right, you can actually grow. So there's ways so one thing, for instance, is, say we like scallions or green onions. If you cut down your scallion, you have that little stalk left with the roots on it. Go stick that out in the dirt and you'll grow new scallions. So that's what we do. We always save our scallions or green onions that we are done eating, and we'll go stick them in the garden. And then you go back a month later, 2 months later, and you've got fresh scallions. So I agree that when you start looking and thinking like this, there's a lot of opportunities. This is something that we need to do as Americans. Like if Americans, and I think that in a lot of ways, though we have this difficult time ahead of us, we're going to learn how to be Americans again. Because if you look at the Americans that founded this country, you look at the Americans that made it through the Great Depression, these are the kinds of Americans we need to be. That's what it means to be an American, right? Not being reliant on fast food and TV dinners and government handouts. Like, we're going to have to learn resiliency and sustainability again, the real way. So yeah, again, as the American people, we need to be doing this more and more. Every American should have a garden. And every American should also, it's funny because when you learn how to garden, you learn how much work goes into your food that you're eating. You also learn not to waste. And this is a big thing. America is a very, very wasteful country. And I'm not outside of it. Look, like if you saw how many boxes I'm throwing away, I should be burning them or doing something with them because if we have packages coming in. But America is a culture of waste. And my great grandmother who lived through the Great Depression, or the commenter whose family came from communism, I almost guarantee you those families do not waste. So we as Americans need to really learn these lessons to not waste and to value what we have. Let's say, is it waste not, want not, right? So thank you for commenting on that. So this is from Rise, and Supu says, what if the government comes for your stores of food? That's a tricky one because there is a scenario where FEMA could, for instance, be going door to door and be looking for food stores to kind of, because it's just what they might do, of course. So there's one recommendation that I have is, and I'm kind of giving myself away with this, but if you can, say you have like a pantry in your kitchen and that's your main place, or say have a place to say someone was coming in from the government and say, look for food, have a decoy food storage. So say you have a handful of stale bags of rice and old food, make it look like that is your food that you have stored away. Because if, say, the government is coming door to door and say it's FEMA, look, they're not going to be coming and searching under every mattress and searching every cupboard and searching every aspect of your house. So if there's a little hidden area in your basement, say under a crawl space where you can have some 5-gallon tubs of food that's stored away, great. They're not going to come search your entire house. So, but if you can have, say, even in your garage, say you have like a few big Tupperware, or big, kind of plastic totes where you have some stale food in there. And if they come to your door, say FEMA comes and says, look, this is all that I have. Like if you take this, I'm going to die. They might say, okay, well, give us half of that. And then you can send them on their way. Cause look, they're not going to be coming in there thoroughly checking. They're just going to be checking a box, right? So they're just going to be checking off on a box. So anyway, I just got notification. So Rob Counts, who's one of the founders of Rise TV, and he's half of Edge of Wonder. I showed you earlier. He's now over on the Rise TV chat hanging out too. So that's what we do. We have our hangouts over there. So just want to give Rob a shout out. Rob, I gave Edge of Wonder a big shout out today, showing your communism series and all the beautiful things that you guys have done over on Rise TV, because you guys have done some amazing work that needs to be recognized. So, all right, over on YouTube, we have American Misfit who says, Donald Trump is endorsing Dr. Oz. Why would he do that? It's a good question. Why would he do that? I have no idea. And there's a lot of people that are up in arms. There's only two reasons, okay? One is that he's stupid. One is that Trump is stupid. He's being fed the wrong information. He's making the wrong decisions. He's endorsing the wrong candidates. I don't think that he is like that. He's a smart guy. I don't think that he's making these the wrong decisions. So the other reason why he would be endorsing Dr. Oz is he knows something that we don't know. So look, there's honestly, I bet you there's a lot of America First candidates that are funded by dark money. Look, it's politics. So, and again, I don't know the specifics of that particular race, but let's just say that there's an American First candidate, say Billy Bob, right? So say Billy Bob is an American First candidate that's running against Dr. Oz, and everyone would have expected for Trump to endorse Billy Bob. But Trump comes out and endorses Dr. Oz, and everyone's like, why are you endorsing Dr. Oz? Why not Billy Bob? He's pro-America. Trump may know something we don't know. He might know that Billy Bob is secretly funded by George Soros. We have no idea. So I can't make sense of it. I still trust Trump for the most part, but I can't make sense of it. So this is from YouTube. This is from Emmanuel Goldstein, who says Bitcoin is a necessity ? I don't view Bitcoin as a necessity. Because I don't really believe much in digital currencies in general. I'm not saying they're bad. It's just for me, like I've studied too much into this stuff. Like what happens if the grid goes down? Like that's a very real scenario that we lose power. It's like, sorry, if you lose power, you know how much your Bitcoin wallet is worth? $0. Zero. even if you have it backed up on a thumbstick somewhere, if an EMP hits, we're not going to have working computers for probably decades. I'm sorry. So again, and what's going to happen to the digital currency? I don't know. So I'm not saying that you're wrong. And if you understand Bitcoin, I have friends that are making a lot of money investing in Bitcoin because they understand it, but they're using it as an investment vehicle, not as a store of wealth. So if you're doing that, that's fine. Me personally, though, I don't trust it. I'd rather own an ounce of silver I can hold in my hand than the equivalent amount in Bitcoin. So this is from Rise. This is from Rise. This is from Angel Aura, who says, you mentioned a bulk food vendor, Azure. So let me pull them up for you really quick. Let's see. I believe this is the right website. One second. Oh, it's okay. Azure Standard. So let me show you their website here. So this is the company. This is Azure Standard. This is where we buy a lot of our bulk food. And so they do drop shipping locations. This is a company that literally yesterday, their headquarters burned down, which is insane. Like, to me, it's like, I almost guarantee you it was some sort of plot to help push along the harm they're doing to preppers, because a lot of people that I know use Azure for their stuff, for their food. But they've got everything. Like, you can get, bulk lentils, bulk honey, powdered milk. Actually, powdered milk is out of stock. But anyways, it's called Azure Standard. Their website is azurestandard.com. If you want a place to get bulk food, please support them. They have great organic selection. I feel bad that they're being targeted and that their warehouse or their headquarters is burned down. So even more so, if we can support companies like this, I would recommend it. All righty. Okay, so this is from Rise, from Ray Z, who says, what is your energy coffee? So it's just regular coffee, but I get it in bulk. And I usually get this organic light roast. But then we have a Breville espresso maker that actually we bought back in New York City to save money, because in New York City we were buying these $4 lattes and it was just insane. So we got a Breville espresso maker. And so that's usually, I think Kate made this for me before the show. I was very kind of her. What's that? The energy is love. This is love coffee from my wife. But anyway, so I usually just have organic light roast that we make espresso with, and we usually do. We put MCT oil a lot of times into it. Occasionally, not often, occasionally I'll do butter in the coffee, but I haven't done that lately. I used to do it a lot more. But yeah, just espresso. We do usually cold or hot in the morning and cold in the afternoon over some milk. So that's it. So from Rise, this is from Mrs. So-and-so, Seth, plant chamomile in your garden. It self-seeds and you can have it for years. Just move it as needed in the spring. I had great tea all winter. Actually, you'll be happy to know that Kate has been sprouting like tons of chamomile, and it sprouts so easily. So we're definitely planting a ton of chamomile in the garden. I thank you for that. All right. So as we continue, so folks, it's already 4:23. I've been going for quite a while. Let me see how many questions that we have left here. Okay, I'm getting there. I'm getting to the end of these questions. I promise you I'd stick with it. This is officially, I think, the longest live show I've ever done. Now I'm almost at 2.5 hours. All right, so Rachel Bruce from YouTube says several of the prophets, Johnny Enlow, Amanda Grace, Kat Kerr, are saying that these things are not going to happen. God is going to stop this attack on our country. How do you feel about this? I disagree. I think that I don't give a lot of weight to modern day prophets for a handful of reasons. I also just think that it's just people can get messages from a lot of different places, and that so I don't put a lot of weight into them. That's all. That's just my personal thing. Maybe you do, and that's perfectly okay. But also, okay, let's look. They're saying that they believe that these things are not going to happen, that God is going to stop this attack on our country. so there's different ways you could look at that, because do I believe that God will stop this before it reaches the mark of the beast system, cabal, like, dystopian future? Yes. So I guess I would agree from the sense I agree that God will step in, but these attacks on our country, like our country going through food shortages and maybe a collapse of the currency, I personally don't believe that God is going to step in and stop those things. So I think that it just depends on where. And I don't listen to them, so maybe their timeline matches up with me, and maybe they think that yes, that we have a great tribulation ahead of us, but at the end of it, God will step in. Yeah, I agree with that. But to say that God will stop us from going through suffering of a food crisis and all that, that's just not my belief. I actually think that these things have to happen. Like, we have to reset our lifestyle. America became just bankrupt, morally bankrupt. There's a lot of good people in America, but we became so decadent and wasteful, and our morals just slipped so far away that I think in a lot of ways we have to go through this. America has to learn this lesson. I don't believe that the lesson is the entire country falling and being run by the elites and Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates, but the lesson of us just learning the real effect that our decadence and the degeneration of our morals is happening. That we have to experience that. So I think that we will have to go through this. Okay, so this is from Rise TV. This is from Metal Avenger. I've had the very painful experience of some friends getting black-pilled and using it as an excuse to treat others, including me, sadistically. Why is that, and how do you deal with it? Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I think the best thing you can do is just have compassion for your friends. The information that we're all trying to grapple with is really heavy. It's tough stuff. This is difficult information to deal with, to process. It's really difficult to even understand where we're at in history and make sense of it. And it can make you very jaded. So if you have friends that have been black-pilled and they understood things and now they've just let that, it's weighed too heavy on them, the best recommendation I have with you is just to show them compassion for the suffering that they're having from this information. But ultimately, if they're mean to you and they're cruel, then just don't have them in your life. That's the ultimate thing, is that, keep good people in your life. If there are people in your life that are destructive and they're bringing you down, they're attacking you, then I would say that, I mean, you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So you don't want to spend time with these friends that are black-pilled and being sadistic towards you. That's not going to be a good thing. White, this is from YouTube, from Melissa Leonard. One of my concerns is water. I agree. Water is really, really important. So as we talked about earlier, having a way to filter water. If you live in an apartment, you still have the ability to have water that you can filter coming through your faucet. If you have your own house, say you live in a neighborhood, even you don't have a natural source of water like a pond or a creek, set up a rainwater catchment system. You can get there very inexpensive, very easy. You can buy barrels on Facebook Marketplace for little to nothing, and you can get a little adapter that allows your gutter to feed water into your barrel system. I'll do a show on this at some point once I finish setting up my system. As I mentioned, you can also drill a well for a couple $100 on your own. It's some work, but you can do it using what's called I forget I forget the actual name of that type of well. I had it up earlier, but there are ways that you can do a well on your property as well. Okay, so this is from Rise, from Randy B, who says, would the chemtrails have something to do with the Santa Ana winds happening twice a week in Los Angeles instead of 4 to 5 times a year? So yeah, I believe that a lot of the weather, the crazy weather we're seeing, is from geoengineering. It's from weather manipulation. Whether it's is it HARP? I think that it's HARP is one of the systems that they use, but yeah, I think they're trying to use the weather against us. And the chemtrails, I think the chemtrails are making it cloudier days. They're blocking the sun. So I would definitely assume, whether it's chemtrails or some sort of other weather manipulation technology, if you're seeing these changes in the weather patterns now and you haven't noticed them in the past, say 5 or 10 years, I'd almost definitely say that it's the bad guys that are behind it. Okay, this is from Sandra Thomas from YouTube. It says, God would not allow if it wasn't for the greater good. And I agree, actually, that that's an important point, is that whatever we're gonna be going through, I do believe that the tribulation that we're entering into, the difficulty ahead of us, will be for the greater good. Because what is the greater good of earth? It's to be rid of this evil. Look back at the flood. Was the flood that wiped out massive populations of people, was that not for the greater good? It was. And so sometimes there have to be sacrifices like that for the greater good. And so I think that whatever we're getting through now, whatever we're going to be experiencing, I do believe it will be for the greater good. I agree with you. Okay, so this is from Rise, from Dawn to Earth. Can you suggest a subtle way to find out if someone is red-pilled? A subtle way. Wear a MAGA hat. No, I'm just kidding. I would try to find, well, it depends on what topic you're looking at with them. Like I find that actually there's a lot of people that are donating. Sorry, I see over on Rise TV. I just want a quick thank you for all the folks that are donating over on Rise TV. I'm not sure who kicked that off, but thank you. Green Eye, thank you very, very much. Chicken Coop Lady, Kraken Ho, Mindy, Kicking Cabals Daily, Chicken Coop Lady again, Nuclear Girl, Shelly. Well, thank you all for those donations coming in. We really, really appreciate that. That's so kind of you. So suggesting a subtle way to find out if someone is red-pilled, I would say try to look for the topics that you think they're more likely to understand. So maybe it's prepping, or I would just try to use this probably little feelers. That's the best. Or gas prices. Yeah, you mentioned, what do you think about these gas prices lately? Just look for those simple, common things. Or what do you think about inflation or prepping? Or just try to ask those little things that people won't really know. I was just joking with the MAGA hat. Just look at those little things that might be helpful for you. Okay, this is from YouTube from Jay Lubiner, who says, is what we're seeing the Great Reset or a result of the breakdown of globalism? That's a great question, Jay. So I believe that what we're seeing is both. So what I think is going to happen is that we're entering into the Great Reset, but actually the elites think that they can use the Great Reset to collapse our current system. And you also have to understand they built this system with the intention of collapsing it at this time. The more you look into this, the more you see, even with our fiat currency, they knew it would come to an end. So the system that we're living in, it feels like, this is what earlier I was saying, look, Trump could slow this down, but he couldn't stop it. They created the reality that we live in. They built it with the intention of collapsing it at a certain point. And that's where that point is right now. So that old system, which they own the system, what we're being taught in schools, the pharmaceutical industry, the corporations, the structure of the nation state, this is all built by them in a way that they're going to collapse it at this time. But what I think is going to happen, though, is that it's during this collapse of the old system where they think that we're going to collapse it as a controlled demolition and put it into their new system. But what I believe is going to happen is that it will collapse, but along with that collapse, they will lose control along the way, and their entire system will collapse along with it. And then when we get to the other side of this, whatever we had ahead of us, that's where we will have a new system. And I believe that new system will be a system that really God is guiding mankind to put into place. Okay, so this is from YouTube, from CVDM. Will gold and silver really have any value? I reckon the powers that be will crash the gold market to get to China and Russia. It's a good question. I believe that that gold and silver will maintain value. We might still see drops in them at certain points, but I believe that they will, at the end, maintain their value, because even though it looks like, okay, so Russia has now backed the ruble with gold, and maybe you see China do something similar in the future, I don't know. But to what you're implying, I don't think that they would collapse the gold to get to Russia, for instance, because the elites have so much of their own wealth stored in gold. So they'd be really hurting themselves. Like, as I understand, that's one of the major ways they've amassed their own wealth is through their own gold reserves. Pamela, question from Rise. Do you think they will start rationing food out? It wouldn't surprise me. Absolutely. I think that we're going to start to see, well, we're already seeing rationing of food. You go to Whole Foods, you go to Costco, you go to Walmart. During the pandemic, they're saying, okay, you can only buy 2 cartons of eggs. You can only buy 1 gallon of milk. So they're already starting to ration and place limits on what we can purchase. I was at Costco over the weekend, and they said you can only buy 4 butters. So that's already starting now. I think that in terms of, say, breadline rations, that will start too. Because I think that's part of what they want to do. They want the people that haven't stocked up, can't produce their own food, to be forced into a breadline system, which is going to be, not only is it going to be food credits, but it's going to be universal basic income probably. But I don't think it's going to be breadline the way that you think of a breadline, or Great Depression, where people are lining up around a street, waiting to get their piece of bread. I think it will be more some sort of digital breadline where they have, or this is what they hope to have, where it's going to be, okay, you get your digital tokens that you can use at the local grocery store. And by this point, maybe the government seizes control of grocery stores. And so you use your food credits the government gives you to go get your food, right? So it's similar to, because I think that they want to move us into that digital system. So I think that we are going to see rationing like that. Okay, so this is from Rise TV. This is from Green Eye. Follow-up question: what is the best ammo to get? So I'm not a guy that knows the specifics of like Remington versus Winchester ammo or whatever. But what I would say is I would focus, if you are going to be buying ammo and stocking up on ammo, get ammo that is the most widely used, right? So 9mm. So I'd probably say 4 ammo, 4 different types of ammunition I'd recommend if you're stocking up. Okay. Only because these are the most universal. You don't want to go out and buy some specialized ammo that, is a newer ammo or that isn't going to be used as commonly. So I'd recommend 9mm, 5.56, right? So 5.56, which is your AR-15 standard ammunition rifles, 22. So 22, this is your basic, plinking ammunition, which will still be very useful in the future, and 12 gauge shotgun. So those are the 4 ammunitions that I'm personally stocking up on. Again, it's 9mm, 5.56, 12 gauge shotgun, and 22 long rifle. Or 22. Those are what I'm personally stocking up on, because those are, I believe, the 4 most common ammunitions. So you don't want to, in the future, if someone has a 9mm Glock, they're going to be buying their specific ammunition. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So Juicy, this is from YouTube, who says, why do you say you don't hold Bitcoin? Bitcoin usually does good when the dollar goes bad. So in a normal scenario, maybe I would hold Bitcoin personally. I used to have some Bitcoin. It wasn't very much. But in a normal scenario, I might hold Bitcoin. But if I believe that, and they're talking about it, if I believe that there is a looming threat of an EMP, or a looming threat of the grid going down, I'm not going to risk any of my wealth being held in a digital wallet. Because that one day when you wake up, you're like, wait, why did I sleep in today? And you look at, why is my alarm clock not on? You walk out, wait, why is the power not on? And you realize the power's off. It's not just you, it's your neighbor, and nothing works. That one day when you realize that $100,000 sitting in your Bitcoin wallet, you no longer have access to it, and you may not have access to it for months, potentially, that's the day that I will not allow it to happen for me. So, all right, this is from YouTube, Liberty Lover. We have enough oil and gas in America, but the tyrants have purposefully stopped U.S. oil and gas. I agree. I absolutely agree. This is why Trump made us energy independent, and we have so many resources for oil and gas in America. But it's the Biden crime family, the other corrupt politicians that have shifted all this over to, we're dependent on Iran and Middle Eastern oil and China and everything. So I agree. They're actively trying to destroy what we have. This is from Rumble, I think this is actually from Rise, from Fox 2, who says, what do you recommend for different variations of home security systems? This is something I haven't really gotten heavy into yet. Whether you get like a keypad security system. I mean, maybe you're looking more into the future for like if we're into a time where there's more looting and theft. The one thing is, it depends on how bad things get. If things get bad enough, your only security system is to have a 24-hour watch, on your property. Like if things get bad enough, that's the only security system. That's why it's better to have more of a community, to have friends and family that can come together and live together. Because if things get to that situation, literally the only way to secure your property is to have human beings that are taking 24-hour watch over your property. That's a much more extreme situation. Before then, when I look at security systems, I'm looking at things that don't require electricity or things that don't require a constant source of electricity. So I have solar power LED floodlights, for instance, which I had to put them up now on my property. I haven't done that yet. So I plan on putting up a lot of solar powered floodlights, LED floodlights. I got dogs. So we got 2 corgis, which are not big security dogs, but they're good property protectors. They will bark at anything coming onto my property. So dogs are an amazing security system because they give you notification. So say someone is coming to rob your house, hypothetically. The dogs will alert you ahead of time so you can go get your gun, you put your family in your agreed upon safe room or whatever it is your family hides, and you can then proactively defend your property instead of not having anything and someone then comes through your door or whatever, and you can't defend yourself. So I'm looking for security systems that are more sustainable like that instead of getting like an ADT system. Now that you can get into really much more detail about security systems, but I'm not going to on today's show because that's a very long discussion. Okay. All right. So this is our last question from, last question from Rumble. I've only got a couple more questions here. So last question from Rumble. This is from Rafi Vila. I've seen a great thing happening. Atheists, Muslims, Christians, and many other people of different perspectives coming to a common point against globalism, which is what I call we the people against the powers that are against us. That is an amazing point. That is an amazing point. And that's why I believe that what is happening right now. I think that there are good people all over the world of different religions that are all realizing we have one common enemy. All right. We have one common enemy. And though I talk about faith on my show, and as you see, I'm cautious. I'm not cautious. I'm careful. I don't push a particular version of faith too strongly. It's just how my stance is. I have an international audience, and I really believe that right now we have one enemy that is the enemy of all mankind. And I hope that good people around the world, regardless of their faith, stand up against this enemy. Because globalism, I think, is rooted in Satanism and communism, and this is the enemy of mankind. So I think I agree. It's an amazing thing you pointed out, that people of all colors, creeds, races, religions are coming together to stand up against the same common enemy. And that is the greatest thing that the evil fears, is exactly that. All right, so I've got 2 more questions to get. Actually, one quick question from Debs, who's asking, what breed of dogs did you get? We got corgis. I forget which exact corgi they are, but they're really cute and they're funny. Their names are Honey and Cece, in case you wanted to know that. Okay, so I have a threat from YouTube from RV There Yet. How or what exactly do you define as Satan's Great Reset? So I define Satan's Great Reset as the Great Reset you see Klaus Schwab promoting, the globalist. That is what I believe is Satan's Great Reset. It is using the communist system, the globalist system, the UN, the World Bank, the World Economic Forum, the CCP. It's the Great Reset that pushes humanity into a digital currency, into what I believe to be what I believe is the mark of the beast system that they're pushing us into. That is Satan's Great Reset. That's my answer with that. KC Dave from Rise. Seth, are you going to broadcast on shortwave if the internet goes down? I absolutely want to figure out how to do that. Regardless of what happens, I want to find a way that we can still reach you. So on Rise TV, hopefully we've got Rise TV radio set up or something, because I want to figure out how we can still reach everybody so we're not reliant on the internet, because it's really important that we're all still in touch. So that was the last question. Oh my, I think I did like 16 pages of questions Almost 3 hours of questions. Well, thank you all. And we still have almost 800 people watching on Rumble, which you guys, you folks are amazing. I really appreciate your endurance here and listening to me talk for so long. It's absolutely incredible. So I want to sincerely thank every single one of you who participated in today's show. I plan on doing some of these Q&A sessions a little more often. I love them. And I think of them as a lot more than a Q&A. I feel like I'm sitting down talking to my friends and family, and we're just talking and chatting together. So I hope this has been wonderful for you. I want to thank everybody that participated. Thank everybody that has shared Man in America content, that has liked or subscribed to what I'm doing. A big thanks to everybody over on Rise TV. And if any of you that have just joined Rise TV today, even on a free trial, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, because you are the reason we are doing this. You're the reason we're pushing forward in this battle, in this information war. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. So tomorrow I'll be going live at 2:00 p.m. Eastern. I'm still figuring out my topics for tomorrow, but they're going to be juicy as you'd expect. And then on Friday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, we have FNL, which is, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's an amazing show to get onto. So if you aren't yet, make sure you're following me on Truth Social and Telegram, and both places as Man in America. That's where I'm most active. I'm most active on Telegram. It's my favorite social media. Even with Truth Social, I still love Telegram the most. So that's where I'm most active. But again, thank you, everybody. I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope that even though there's some crazy stuff going on, that you can still lift yourself up a little bit and experience a little bit of hope towards the future. Because, look, I believe that we do have some tough times ahead of us, but I believe that what's on the other side of those difficult times is something that'll be so beautiful and so wonderful that we could have never even imagined it. It'll be a world that is free of the evil that we now know is consuming our world. So just stick with it. Thank you all so very much. Take care. God bless. And I'll see you for the next show.